Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August 26th, 2020 edition of Weekly Manga Recap. I am
Yep, that's a good sign.
Nick and Chris.
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
We had a little cut.
We had a little
I'm
hiccup.
here. I'm here.
Little
It's a
hiccup.
great Weekly Manga Recap off to a great, flawless start. Everything is fine.
Mhm.
We're all fine here.
Yep.
Chris, how are you feeling? It's healthy, right? You're feeling healthy.
Yeah, if healthy means very sick, and I've been very concerned because obviously we're currently living through the COVID pandemic crisis right now, and I was very lucky that I had a friend with me throughout this, someone who's a part of the show, someone who's been with me what feels like forever. That friend, of course, is Honey Mustard. Because I went to eat something and like the number one like telltale sign I guess that you have COVID as opposed to something else is like a loss of smell and taste.
Right.
And I was really worried. I was starting to worry because I was like, I can't really smell anything. And then finally had a little honey mustard on something. And I was like, I taste that tang. You can't hide that tang from me. So who knows? It might still be COVID. I might not have gotten to that point yet. We don't know.
People's symptoms do apparently come in different forms, but yeah, just keep an eye on yourself, man.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's a way that's gonna help you feel better. Is we got a fuck ton of manga to talk about.
Oh boy, that's the thing. I've been sleeping on and off today because I was like, I need to do as much as I can to preserve my voice for what is undoubtedly going to be like a 3-hour long episode of Weekly Manga Recap.
Crazy. And in the interest of that, Chris, we have so much manga to talk about, largely because there was no manga last week. So there were double issues of everything came out. I think we've got 2 chapters of Eden Zero to talk about this week. So, yeah. In the interest of doing the series justice, I guess I'll say, we are going to leave off the big recommendation that we've been working on, Black Butler or Kuroshi Tsuji, for next week. And I know that some people might be wondering, well, what's going to happen with Statistics September? Don't worry. As soon as we're done with Black Clover, As soon as we're done with Black Clover,
it's
all over this week, Chris.
You wish.
After that massive cliffhanger that we leave on.
They were like, and it's done. Goodbye, everybody. Everyone waves to the camera.
As soon as we're done with Black Butler, we will get to reading Code Breakers, and that will be our big September review. But we need a little bit more time to let Black Butler gestate and also, gather our energy and our concentration for it. Because we've got so many big things to talk about this week, new stuff ending, that, yeah, we might as well, I guess, get into it. So, let's start off with My Hero Academia. It's chapter number 281, Plus Ultra. I can't believe that there hasn't been a chapter titled that before. Maybe there's been a chapter titled that, but with exclamation points, because there's none in this one. Yeah. Shigaraki was not looking like he was in great shape because, Aizawa was there, pinning him down with his quirk negation stuff. He keeps on getting punched in the face and exploded and fired and all that stuff. What did he ever do to deserve this? Nothing, I say. That leader of this revolution that's killing so many people.
I like evil justice, Nick. What did Shigaraki do wrong? Nothing, I say. Nothing for nobody.
Shigaraki's upset at all the heroes, calls them all hypocrites because, they pretend to protect everyone. And of course, we see in his flashback when he was in trouble and everyone was just kind of like basking by because he was a weird little homeless looking kid and they didn't stop to help him. And so he says the system is rotten with maggots crawling out. It builds up little by little over time. You've got the common trash, too dependent on being protected. The brave guardians who created that trash that needs coddling. It's a corrupt, vicious cycle. Everything I've witnessed, the whole system you've built, has always rejected me. Basically, Shigaraki is 12 right now, and he's going on. He's just discovered that the world is shit, and he's hormonal enough to be angry about it. So yeah. So he wants to destroy society. He reiterates that, and he says, "I don't care if you don't understand. That's what makes us heroes and villains." He's so 12 years old, I swear.
Nick, what Linkin Park song would be set to the AMV over this scene?
Uh,
I feel like One Step Closer.
yeah, because it's got that angst factor down. Because that was the big like I'm angry Linkin Park song.
Yeah.
Given Up maybe.
Yeah.
A little further down the line because that's got all the anger as well. But yeah, I think that One Step Closer defines like, oh, I'm about to break. I'm about to go nutso on you. Whereas Given Up is literally just like, I don't care anymore. So
yeah, we'll get to Given Up like a couple months from now.
Nobody asked me what about a song that came out after Minutes to Midnight because I don't remember any of them. But
Castle of Glass is kind of good. Question mark.
What was that one? Is New Divide, the one that they did for the Transformers movie? That's all right.
I don't know the difference between New Divide and What I've Done. I'll be honest. I feel like they're the exact same song.
They do. They are very much structured and like tonally the same.
The perfect song to robots punching each other in generic landscapes.
Or we could go for The Catalyst or any of the other songs from that album that were not good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Endeavor responds to Shigaraki going on his preteen wankst fest by punching him with fire and saying, "Thanks for making a speech so that I could recover and fire you some more."
It's nice that the hero finally gets that moment of like, thanks for talking endlessly about nonsense.
The number one hero, everyone. So, Endeavor basically is like, I'm going to kill you now, but Shigaraki is super, super, super strong, and he just jumps out of the fire and goes to attack, which causes Gran Torino to step in, and he uses his super speed, knocks Shigaraki to the ground, and observes that Endeavor seems to just not be as strong at this point. Possibly he's just running out of endurance because, remember, he was in the big group fight before trying to go after Shigaraki. So his fire might be running out, basically. Shigaraki responds to Gran Torino tackling him by whipping around. Gran Torino tries to dodge, but he just grabs his leg, blows it up, essentially. And, of course, everyone immediately tries to jump in as he throws the little old man to the ground. And this causes Gran Torino to recall, to go to flashback, because he might be dying now. So he flashes back when Nana Shimura gave up her son. And basically she's like, yeah, I take her with my family records so that, All for One won't be able to find him. And because if he were to learn about him, then he would exploit that connection. And so she says, I have no son. I never did. And of course she's horribly broken up about this. And a young, much, much taller Gran Torino hugs her and comforts her as she cries. And Gran Torino is thinking about this while, of course, Shigaraki is thinking about how Nana Shimura abandoned her family. But, of course, he knows the truth that he did this in order to protect them, and it was a very difficult decision for her to make, as blood is going everywhere. Yay! Deku is upset. He lunges in after Shigaraki. Endeavor tells him to stay back so that he can, launch more fire at him, but Shigaraki dodges around that. And while everyone's been distracted from this, they've left Aizawa unprotected. So Shigaraki's going for the guy and getting all of his quirks. Fortunately, Ryukyu's there. She's all dragoned up. She tries to grab him, but Shigaraki is so strong that he just shoves his hand through her hand. It's a little bit difficult from this point forward, to figure out exactly what is going on. I had a very hard time following the actual action. There's a lot of weird jumps between close-ups and outshots, and
Wait a minute, Nick. Are you implying that my hero was kind of incomprehensible in the chapter? No.
Been having a lot of that since this fight started, haven't we?
I'm having a lot of that for 4 years now.
Deku again latches on to Shigaraki. He is like summoning his black whip around him as well. Shigaraki responds to this by elbowing him in the ribcage, which causes him to cough up blood. I'm sure he's fine. Whenever you cough up blood after that, you're fine. Just ignore it. Keep going. Deku keeps on trying to bind him up with the Black Whip ability. Endeavor comes rushing in, and he's just surrounded by fire everywhere. He's like, I've got to get one more hit in on this guy with everything that I've got. And then Shigaraki does a thing that I had a very difficult time following. He reaches into his pocket for the quirk suppression bullets, but there's also this big zoom in on the hand that's sticking through Ryukyu's hand. But so he's got a bullet in that one. I'm not sure what he's planning on doing with that. And then he gets another bullet out with his free hand. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but he's trying to use the quirk suppression bullets. And to let us know that they're the quirk suppression bullets, we get a shot of Eri at the very end, who is naive to all of this that's going on.
Yes. So, hey, Gran Torino might be dead. Who knows?
Yep. I thought that the Gran Torino stuff was pretty good. I kind of wish the entire chapter were about it, because once it gets into all this other stuff, it's like, what's going on? So.
Yeah. Now, I'm dumb. So is Gran Torino the father? Is that the implication?
I don't know, Chris.
Okay. I wanted to make sure I wasn't like really, really dumb. I mean, I am, but
they never stated who the father of Shimura's son is. So I don't know. Maybe.
All right. I was just checking. I wasn't sure if they were trying to allude to something between her and Gran Torino there.
People in the chat are letting us know that they think that it was mentioned that her husband or lover or whatever died. So,
okay.
So Gran Torino is just a really close person. I don't know. Maybe they were fucking after she had the kid, Chris. I don't know.
Maybe. You know what? Good for her.
That'd be a weird, like, last words to have. Like, if Gran Torino, oh, you've got to save her grandson. By the way, I was totally hitting that.
It's like that sweet, sweet ass.
Oh, there goes my heart.
They're like, I wish his heart had given out on him a couple seconds early and preserved some of his dignity.
Okay. What do we have next?
We have Boruto next. Boruto number 49. Prepared. Which honestly feels worthless without B in front of it. Then it's a great title, but just prepared, it's kind of like, eh.
So this chapter, I feel like, honestly, could be summed up pretty quickly, as in they're gonna go fight him now. But that's basically what happens. There is a really amusing bit at the very beginning where, God, I forget. I keep on forgetting this guy's name because his name has changed.
Ishiki?
Ishiki?
I think it's Ishiki now. It was Jigen.
Right.
But now that Ishiki's taken over, I think he's just Ishiki now.
So he is in Konoha now that he has dispatched Jiraiya's clone dude. And so he's just like, well, I'm going to go find my Karma Vessel guy. And so he's just looking around while people are like panicking and you know, an alert has been raised and stuff like that. So eventually he spots two ninjas and he just goes up to them and he's like, I'm looking for a boy named Kawaki. Can you tell me where he is?
I do like how Ishiki has become such like a natural character at this point where he's like, I need to find this guy. Hey, do you know where he is? Ah! He's like, oh, bother. This again?
So, of course, Nameless Ninja A makes the greatest mistake any ninja in Naruto can possibly make, which is he throws shurikens at Ishiki. The other guy's like, no, we don't have permission to engage, but the shuriken vanish and then reappear in the second guy.
That guy has to be so pissed. He's like, you dumb fucking asshole. Ah!
He's gonna kill you. You asshole! He's killing me!
I got one in the face! The face!
So, that's happening. Of course, Naruto gets word that, like, a combatant is down because his partner was being a dumbass. There's a whole bunch of people, just saying stuff to each other. It's not important. Shikamaru tries to escort Boruto away, but Sasuke is like, hang on a sec, I need a minute with him. We cut over to where Naruto is. He flies over towards Ishiki, and Ishiki stops, I guess. It kind of looks like he gets hit for a second, but I think he's just putting the brakes on while he's flying.
Yeah.
So Naruto is squaring off against him, and Sasuke, meanwhile, is talking to Boruto, and he says, it's going to be tough for Naruto and I to take this guy down, because when we fought Jigen, we couldn't even touch him. So, hey, I heard what happened in that fight against Boro, and apparently Sarada said you got really super strong, so...
Help me out here, kid.
He doesn't, say that exactly, but he is the one to broach the topic, so I'm pretty sure he's like, hey, I used to have this seal thing that was really dangerous but made me super strong, so...
Look, I don't want to throw it out there that I need this 10-year-old to win this fight for us, but you're a 10-year-old and you could win the fight for us, so can you?
And Boruto's like, I lost all sense of myself, and I think that based on what Amado said, that I turned into Momoshiki.
Interesting.
By the time I
Fascinating. Is that a yes? Is really kind of what I'm not really looking for more than a yes or no answer. It better be yes, because man, we're pinning a lot on this.
I don't know if I turn into him, then
I'm gonna pick you up now.
One Otsutsuki for another, and putting the village in greater danger.
I'm just gonna pick you up and carry you to the fight, so you can decide on the way if you definitely want to.
You're bringing up things that tomorrow Sasuke will worry about. Today, Sasuke needs you to save his ass right now.
I didn't get to where I was without committing war crimes, so I'm absolutely fine with this. You have to understand. I will let any 10-year-old endanger themselves if it means this stupid town stays safe.
You know all the things that I can do with just my eyes? Do you know all the things I did in order to be able to do that?
None of them good.
My sense of morals is shaky at best.
I didn't get a whole lot of heroic power-ups, if you kind of get what I'm saying here. If you catch the drift.
I got the crying tears of blood kind of power-ups. So, anyway, we cut over to Ishiki and Naruto. They say stupid things to each other for a little bit. And then they start to fight, and they don't do anything because they're just trying to punch and kick each other. That saves me about 4 pages that I have to recap. Yep. Then Sasuke shows up, and Naruto's like, you're late. Sasuke's like, I had to prepare. And he says, Naruto, cover me with throwing weapons. Naruto's like, did you see what happened to the last guy?
Sasuke, you know the number one rule of being a ninja, throwing weapons never work. I don't know why we passed 10-10, to be honest. It felt kind of cruel.
Aw. Poor 10-10. So, they start throwing some shurikens. Sasuke is rushing in towards Ishiki while they throw shurikens and kunai and all that stuff. And Ishiki uses his shrinking jutsu thing, which, he's using the shrinking jutsu thing, A, because he uses the shrinking jutsu incantation, and B, they disappear, and Naruto says, he's shrinking all of them! Yes, Naruto, that's his jutsu. I know, thank you.
You saw it. This isn't a surprise to you either. You know he can shrink things. Well, no. The camera went out by that point. Didn't it? Camera frog. Didn't the camera frog go out before Jigen was able to start using the shrinking thing ability?
They fought him before, and he used his shrinking ability
Did
on
he?
them.
Oh, okay, then never mind.
And they were still watching while he couldn't absorb the fire. Anyway, they're throwing stuff at this guy, and Ishiki's sort of just thinking, what the hell are they trying to do? Then Sasuke throws his sword. Very good throw, because Katana is not throwing weapons. And so Ishiki's just like, whatever, I'll just shrink it. And then the sword keeps coming towards him. And he's like, what? And then it booms, And it's Boruto in a transformation jutsu. Chris, it's a callback to like chapter like 40 or something of Naruto.
I don't even think it's that far. I like that seems kind of. I think it might be like 14, to be honest.
When they did the big old giant shuriken transformation thing. So hey, I like it.
Yep.
And so Sasuke kind of, is like bragging before their tactic has done anything, the way you do. And he's like, the jutsu can shrink anything except living creatures. And Ishiki has enough time to react to go, you snarky brat. So I don't know why he doesn't just like, okay, and, enlarge a pillar in front of him to block this or something. But we go back to the conversation that Sasuke and Boruto were having. And Sasuke just basically says, like, listen, if you, like, turn into, a weird demon guy and go berserk on everyone, I'll stop you, even if I have to kill you. I'm willing to kill a 12-year-old. I just want you to know that. I've done way worse.
He's like, I'm 15. Whatever. You're something. You're something that's too young for me to be boldly saying I'll kill you with no qualms. That's how old you are.
So he says all that, and then Boruto's like, hey, last time when we went to rescue Dad from Momoshiki, remember you lent me your headband? Can I borrow it again? And Sasuke's like, fine, you little goober, here you go. And we catch back up to the present, and Ishiki's like, I'm not even going to bother doing anything about this kid, because what can he possibly do about this? And then Boruto summons a space-time jutsu and sucks them both away from Konoha. And Naruto's like, how the hell did he do that? And then Sasuke's like, come on, let's go follow them. And they do. And they're like, all right, we're going to fight out in this wasteland now. And for some reason, Ishiki's like, I will fight you, instead of just flying back to Konoha, I guess. So they're gonna fight in the DBZ special in the abandoned wasteland with mountains. So I
like to think that like the Power Rangers show up with a bad guy. They're like, oh, are you guys using this space? Oh, okay, we'll fight somewhere else. We'll go that way.
We got this place reserved for 7:30.
Do you guys think?
Oh, that's 7:30 Central Time. Sorry. All right, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot time zones work with. We'll be over here. If you guys finish early, we'll just jump in. So, good luck to, I guess, the good guys. Who knows? Whatever. Bye.
That guy was saying he was going to kill that 12-year-old, so I'm not sure which one I want to win.
I think they're all the bad guys in this show. Must be one of those Game of Thrones things.
Yeah. So that was Boruto last week. Yep.
Yeah, it's a fine chapter.
That was all right. I thought that I saw the whole Boruto transformation thing, and I was like, I understood that reference, and that made me happy, and that was about it. That's about all I have to say about it. It's okay.
All right, we have Kaiju number 8 now. Chapter 8.
Kaiju. Number 8. 8. So, last time, the secret was revealed. A Kaiju transformation has been revealed by our brave protagonist in front of Super Genius Girl. I'm bad at names. I'll remember them eventually. And the chapter's not loading, so yay.
I mean, it's basically there's a big bunch of chaos. The friend guy's like, well, we should get out of here. And he's like, nah, fuck, Kafka's gone. That idiot wouldn't transform. God damn it, he did it. I know he's going to do it. He just like, I just know this dumb asshole is going to fucking transform and run out.
Yep. Okay, there we go. We catch back up to Kafka. He turns to Kikoru after he's taken his, kaiju form, looking all intimidating, got that skull face with the horns and everything. And she's like, wait a minute, you're a kaiju? Don't tell me you are in league with that other one, or you know each other, and Kafka just turns to her and he's like, Kikoru, please don't tell anyone about this, please! Immediately, like, forgetting all about the kaiju bearing down, and there's like, don't give away my secret, please! They don't have time to address that whole matter, however, because the big-ass kaiju, it's firing a arrow at them. So Kafka immediately turns, just lifts his hand up and deflects the blast immediately. And Kafka says, well, look, I'll explain later. I need to take this thing down right now, so just sit there and relax for a minute. We cut over to the headquarters where the proctors were, observing everything. And they're like, there is this really weird reading going on over there. Someone apparently sees Kafka's energy spike because it's basically off the charts in terms of readings. And they're like, but they kind of dismiss this because they're like, well, the last jolt must have kind of thrown off the calculation. That's all. So, because if it's not an error, then whatever this is will go down in the history books as one of the strongest kaiju to ever exist. A Dai Kaiju. Vegas Kaiju attacks. Kafka plants his foot, and I mean, like, plants his foot, like he grows out extra tendons so that he has a greater planting. And he's like, I need to do this quickly, so I'm just going to just kill you in one shot.
Yeah.
His elbow opens up and like a jet fires out of it to give him extra punching power. And what unfolds is, well, the kaiju, but also one of the coolest displays of an organic thing getting hit really, really hard that I've ever seen. Because it also punches Kafka's fist, and in return, the force of Kafka's punch blows all the muscles off of its arm, then the rest of its body, and then cracks go up along its skeleton and it disintegrate the entire thing. And this happens over the course of 3 pages. It's really cool.
Oh, it's awesome. And I love the immediate like reaction panel directly afterwards of her just being like, what the fuck just happened?
So then we have Kafka, trying to deliver this awesome one-liner because he's like, yeah, let's see you try and come back after that. And then like the muscles and bones start like spasming as if they're going to wind themselves back together. He's like, oh, I'm just kidding, don't do that. But then they collapse permanently. So Kikoru is like, holy crap, this guy is way stronger than I could possibly ever be. Then Kafka reaches towards her and she instinctively flinches, but of course he's just punching another, a weaker kaiju, a Yoju that appeared behind her, and so he's just protecting her from that. His face starts to, peel away into his regular face, and he just kind of gives her this big dopey smile and says, I'm glad you're safe. And then his transformation completely fades, and he says, hey, piece of advice, you need to make your own safety more of a priority. Which, understandable, because she was basically putting her entire body on the line in order to protect people when that wasn't her job to do. Ishikawa shows up on the scene and tells Kafka, you should do the same, because of course he has just jeopardized his chance of getting into this, the unit, and also, could just be thrown in jail or executed. So he's caught up with Kafka, of course. And Kafka's like, well, I mean, I thought that I might just get away with, like, transforming part of my body, but then I realized how powerful the thing I was up against was, so I decided it wasn't good. At that moment, as they're arguing, Kikoru collapses unconscious because, she nearly had a bunch of holes blown in her. And then we cut over to Ashiro and Hoshina, the 2 proctors for the test, including Kafka's childhood friend. And they have arrived on the scene and armed with weapons. Seemingly, they have not taken out the other kaiju yet. So,
yeah, this is a pretty good chapter. I like a lot of the action in it, and I really like Kafka's relationship with Kikoru. I kind of don't love the end of the chapter. I don't know why. I guess it's supposed to be pretty exciting to be like his childhood friends at the scene. But to be honest, that's like the least interesting part about Kafka, is that he has this kind of stereotypical, like, oh, pretty girl who I have like a long backstory with. Like, I wonder if that's going to be interacted with at some time. And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of enjoy him much more of this like goofy dad character. It's just like, I blew up this monster. Now please don't tell anybody that I did it, please.
I do appreciate that they're kind of seemingly going in that direction of like a sort of fatherly relationship with this girl who is pushing herself too hard and has really bad daddy issues, of course. And I think that part of it is just that his relationship with Hoshina has very much been put just in the background. Like it's this just kind of like driving force we have been aware of so far, but we haven't really seen any aspect of it beyond the promise they made with each other when they were kids, the fact that she succeeded and he didn't, and that's literally it. We haven't seen them like hold a conversation since then to find out really where they stand with each other, which might be where this is leading to.
Yeah. And honestly, she might be a more interesting character once we get to know her. All we kind of know right now is like she's the cool ice queen. Nobody really talks to her. She walks around in a towel and has a tiger. And you'd think that'd be really cool, but for some reason, after reading so much manga, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's all right, I guess. The tiger's kind of a neat touch, but
Well, she's just like really into cats. And
she might be. I mean, hey, who isn't when you get right down to it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a fun chapter, pretty short, but like I said, I really like the moment where he just delivers the punch because I don't think I've actually seen. I've seen that done in a couple of like kind of monstrous series before, but the exact way it happened with just the body disintegrating layer by layer was really cool. So
cool. So we're gonna talk about the photography thing, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So,
all right, I got my background ready for it. Let's talk about Lock On, Nick.
Let's talk about Lock On.
Let's talk about Lock On.
It's kind of a hybrid between Lock On and every Exorcist series that has debuted in Jump this year. So
have we had some?
There's been one or two, you know. Spirit photographer Saburo Kodo, which is by the team that made The Promised Neverland. They didn't. They didn't take a very long vacation, did they?
Nope. Gotta get another one out.
It's been like 2 months since The Promised Neverland ended, and they suddenly like, yeah, we made a one shot. This is a bit different from when we did All Ghouls Homeroom, because that one it was like, okay, this is a pilot.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely a pilot. You cannot mistake it for anything else. Whereas this one is like, I can see this just kind of like just being on its own and then never being picked up on again. It is about a photographer named Saburo. He is a very weird, initially incredibly creepy looking guy. He's got, you know, the big, the Promised Neverland evil grin kind of as his default expression. Mm-hmm. And also he's got curled hair. Not curly hair, curled hair, which, and he shows up, he takes over this apartment that is haunted because a woman died in it fairly recently. And then
Eerie Gray has a great point. He looks like a creepy Inspector Gadget. Now that I see it, like now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, it looks like a really terrifying Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, the hat, yes. Saburo introduces himself to Sota, the young boy who lives next door to said haunted apartment, and introduces himself, and he's like, "Oh, I'm a photographer, but I'm not a normal photographer. I've taken this. Here, have this souvenir of our meeting," because he like snapped a candid photo of him as soon as he answered the door. And so, of course, Sota's trying to get rid of the guy. He's trying to get rid of the guy. He's trying to get rid of the guy. But he keeps on like shoving his foot in the door and stuff like that. And he basically kidnaps the kid. Like honestly, he drags Sota next door and is asking Sota all sorts of questions about after saying like, "Oh, this is here's my specialty camera and stuff. This is what I do. I do spirit photography. It's my job. I can actually take photos of people and use it to transfer and capture the souls of the dead. Like that rumor that there is that if you take a photo of someone, it steals part of their soul. It's kind of like that." And Sota immediately freaks out and he's like, "It doesn't work on living people." But he's like, "Hey, I want to ask you some questions about the woman who lived here and stuff." And Sota tries to say like, "Well, a lady jumped off the balcony 4 months ago on a rainy day, and her name was Yoko Kakizaki. She was just some typical adult. We barely spoke, but she was a pleasant, kind person." And so Saburo's like, "Well, why did she commit suicide?" And so Sota's like, "What? There wasn't a no. I don't know." But he keeps on pressing him, and he's like, so maybe it wasn't suicide, since her death And so Soda's like, well, everyone's left here immediately since she died, and they always see, this spirit at night. They get grabbed, they got scared, and so it was probably Yoko's ghost. But maybe they were just lying, because you haven't seen a ghost, so let me go home. And so Saburo's like, I guess. Well, it is almost nighttime, though. So he lets Sota go, but as he reaches for the door locks on its own. And so Sota's like, is there someone who you loaned the keys to? Is it the landlord? What is it? And Saburo says, well, maybe it's not a guest. And he says, you see, even if I lock the door, it's been coming each of the past 2 days. And Soda's like, wait, when you said you hadn't seen a ghost? Yeah, I lied. So the door suddenly opens and footsteps come in, but there's nobody there, of course. But as they listen to the sounds, Saburo's like, yeah, you can hear it. Wet, barefoot footsteps from a female spirit entering the room. Sota realizes that it's Yoko, the woman who died, and she looms over him, and suddenly he can see her. He gets freaked out, and Saburo's like, hey, stop hiding. Look at her. She's trying to say something to you. And as they look at her, they can't really understand her, but they can see her mouth moving. And Saburo's like, she's saying your name, Sota. For some reason, she's been looking for you. And so Sota, freaks out. He's trying to run away. He's trying to find some way out of the room, but all the doors lock. And Sota's like, hey, well, if you've got the camera to capture her spirit, do that. Help me. And Saburo says, it's still too early for that. You're hiding something. And it's odd because you said you had barely spoken to her, but you said she was a kind person. Not she seemed like a kind person. She was a kind person, which means you knew her. So why did you lie, and why are you so afraid of her? And Sota says, because she must hate me, and he confesses that on that day, Yoko wasn't committing suicide. He was contemplating committing suicide. And we basically get this full flashback of how Sota had all the trouble at school. He was getting bullied. Yoko was comforting him, and he told her, hey, don't tell people I've been bullied and beaten up. And so she agreed to keep the secret. They made a pinky promise, but of course the torment continued. So he went on to the balcony. He was contemplating committing suicide. And so Yoko spotted him from her own balcony. She said, don't do it. Here, I'll go over to you. Let's talk about this. And while she was trying to make her way from her balcony over to his, of course it was raining. So she slipped and she fell to her death. And that's why Yoko died and Sota didn't. And so now Sota, in the present, basically blames himself for her death, for all that happened. Yoko's spirit bears down on Sota and gives him a hug. And she speaks, and now Sota can understand her, and she just says, I'm glad that you're alive. And she assures him that it wasn't his fault. And she says, remember, you're not alone. And remember to live and smile, because nothing good comes from dying. Please don't think about taking your life anymore. And Sota promises her, and he says, I promise for real this time. And then Saburo comes up as they're embracing. He says, can I take a picture? And he's got this big old, this little smile on his face, this pleasant little smile. And he suddenly doesn't look nearly as creepy anymore. And he takes a picture of the two of them, and they're making a pinky promise. And the picture, he's taking the picture, and then he sets the picture on fire. And as he does, it turns into a butterfly. And he says, the butterfly is the shape that a soul takes when it leaves the body. And so does the spirits pass on. And he says a narration afterwards that Saburo disappeared after that. And he basically made up his mind to basically start over after that. Transfer schools away from the fucking assholes who have been bullying him and all that stuff. And Saburo left him a copy of the picture, although it doesn't have Yoko's spirit in it, but it's still, of course, a tremendous treasure to her. And afterwards, Saburo's like, hey, I'm not an exorcist. I'm a photographer. And that's it. We just kind of get this, reiteration of the premise, basically. It's a very sweet little story, I think. Mm-hmm. And like I said, kind of a mix between, photography and, spirit exorcism stuff that we've been seeing a lot of lately. But this is a nice little twist on it, and I really do like the little story that's told with Sota and Yoko. So,
Yep, it's very sweet. There's a part of me that's unjustly kind of negative on it. Kind of like once you watch enough M. Night Shyamalan movies, you're just like, all right, man, what's the twist? You're always going to do it. And in my mind, like the Promised Neverland's still so much on my head that I'm just like, how would you mess this up? Why would he need to start using guns? Like, that's what I'm trying to think about.
When is he going to reveal he's got baby memories? Well, no, that was the problem with Promised Neverland.
That's the best thing about Promised Neverland.
It's like, he's got baby memories. All right, I'm on board now.
All right, Nick. So we're going to talk about Eden Zero, 2 chapters. Start with Eden Zero, chapter 106, Prayer Council. And we open with Zhao Mei. And I'll apologize, guys, again, because I'm sick. My voice might, falter after a bit of, prolonged talking. So I might rush through a couple things. My apologies in advance. But Zhao Mei opens things up by reiterating, I'm the narrator of this tale. Here's what happened because I guess the little Grand Bell adventure kind of works as a small miniature arc. So here's everything recapping it.
Yeah.
And basically, and now on to the new adventure in the Owl Cosmos. The cosmos where everything is surrounded by water and there are fish literally swimming through the sky.
Everything is fish. Yep. Yes.
So the characters are reacting to the fact that they're there, wow, this is really crazy. Rebecca thinks about how that's how they first met Connor way back in the day, he was drifting through a school of fish from another cosmos. Jin shows up and is like, yep, this is the Owl Cosmos. And everyone's like, Jin. He's like, I don't like you guys. I'm only here out of necessity. And then he leaves. And you're like, all right, that was a conversation, I guess. Shiki's like, huh, but I thought I made friends with him, didn't I? And everyone's like, oh.
It is actually a great moment where he's just like, wait a minute, but I made friends with him. He can't act that
way. There's a moment of just what are we going to do here? Witch takes off her helmet and says hey, you know what? My sole objective is to get us to outer space. I didn't know where we'd emerge, and all of our memories aren't lost. The Eden Zero's log recording outer space travel is entirely erased as well. So from here on in, we're in unknown territory. And Hermit's like, I think I might be able to fix some of that. I don't know of any way to restore memories, but I might be able to fix the log. So there you go. And they also note hey, it's kind of interesting. I guess she already started repairing it a little bit. She's like, yeah, 15 years ago, we went from the soccer cosmos to the Owl Cosmos, just like we're doing now. So we're unconsciously taking the same route. Yeah. So they're we're headed to the fire planet, Red Cave. And Moskoy just says...
Such a weird...
Go ahead.
This is such a weird twist that comes from this. It's we're going to the fire planet. It is not a fire planet.
Yeah. So, which is fire planet, and Moskoy says, fire Moskoy. So, we're keeping the greatest hits going. That's what I'm thinking. And then there's something else. Hermit finds something in the log for Poseidon Nero, who's one of the... Fuck, I forgot about this part. All right, so Poseidon Nero is one of the Oracion 6, the same group that Elsie and Dracojo belong to.
Yes.
Mind you, they are not an actual group the same way previous Oracion 6 groups in Hero Series were. This is essentially the Emperors, a term given to these 6 people of very pronounced importance in space. And they're called the Oracion 6 Galactica.
Yes.
So they talk about Nero a little bit, and they say he's an emperor. He has absolute authority here. We see a silhouette of him, and he almost kind of looks like he has one of those squid heads. He has almost little tentacle tendrils where his hair would be. So they're like, wow, this guy is really powerful. Sounds like a guy we shouldn't mess with, because unlike Drac and Joe, who worked into shadows, Nero is just an emperor. He just leads everything here.
By the way, I love the name Poseidon Nero.
It's a great name.
This is my new character, Hades Caesar.
So they're like, hey, I guess we'll have to watch out for him. I don't know. Maybe he'll be friendly like Elsie, or he'll be bad like Drac and Joe. And which is who cares? Let's go. So they're like, all right, well, we'll find out information on the red planet. Then we cut over to that big ship with not Jalal and his two friends,
Justice.
Stupid and what's his name, and they're like, grrr, and then they get sent away by some angry dude on a telecom, and they're like, hold on, we have to have a prayer council, and then like 6 screens pop up, or I guess 5 screens, and a bunch of characters start talking, and they're like, yes, you know, we'll go after Elsie at some point, but that's Nero's territory, so we'll have to deal with that. Us, those who exist to fight the Oracion 6 Galactica. We are the Oracion 6 Interstellar! And I'm like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. You separated these two groups by one word that are very interchangeable. Fuck, I just hope this is like the NWO. Like, there's the Oracion 6 Latin, the Oracion 6 Wolfpack, classic Oracion 6, and they're all different groups.
Oh my god.
And we see all the different designs. So there's some kind of robot-looking guy named Cure. There was the guy who was the leader of the other, like the leader, I guess, of the military called Jaguar. Some kind of sexy lady called Holy. Some kind of other sexy lady who's a lot more quiet called Feather. Then not Gerard himself, Justice. And then another not Gerard. This time with the correct hair color called Eraser. So we'll have 2 of those now. And they are a real group, by the way. This isn't a name given to these people. This is an actual group who then hunts a group that was just given the title collectively. So there's a small moment of someone being like, oh, you're just worried, Justice, because you're going to have to go out of your precious Elsie. And he's like, no, I will arrest her in the name of the Oracion 6 Interstellar. That woman took everything from me. And his hair literally just turns into Gerard's hair. And even gets like a little marking over one eye. So there you go. He promises to kill her with his own 2 hands. And then they go to pray. And that's pretty much the end of that chapter. The rest of the group lands on the Red Cave.
Yeah, it's not important.
Yeah, so then we'll talk about chapter 107, A Planet Where Stars Fall Like Rain. So it's
beach episode!
Yeah, it's the red planet, the fire planet Red Cave, but it's just actually a beach planet. And there's a bunch of stupid jokes, because Weiss is like, you guys have to know what the beaches are about, and everyone does like their character thing, and then he's like, no, it's to rub sunscreen on sexy ladies. And which is just like, well, we don't actually need sunscreen because, you know, we could actually just change the color of our skin and give ourselves a tan instantly if we really wanted to. Then Hermit's butt asks, how is this a fire planet? Like, legitimately, the speech bubbles arrow is pointed at her butt, so her butt can consciously ask questions and asked, how is this a fire planet? And they don't have an answer. They're like, I don't know, temperature's high, but, you know, doesn't really matter, I guess. It's really just great temperature water planet. Everybody has a bunch of beach adventures. Clean comes out. She has beach adventures, too. A bunch of light ether falls from the sky, and they're like, oh, wow, it's like raining sunshine. It's a very beautiful sight. Weiss just stares at Horace Bart.
Best part of the chapter was the 2-page spread of the sparkly ocean. It's very pretty.
Yeah. Cheeky's like, hey, you want to go up there and see it, don't you? And she's like, you could just take my BQB. He's like, nope, it would only make sense if you saw it yourself. So they jump into the air, and they share a nice little moment where she films the falling light ether with her little B-cube, and she's like, wow, this is beautiful. Then a ship crashes, and they're like, well, let's go check it out. We have these devices that let people breathe underwater. I wish I could act as though I'm speeding through this, but that's basically how it's quickly introduced. In the same panel as the ship falls, they're like, well, we brought these things, let us explore underwater. There is a cute moment where Pino wears one despite being a robot because she wants to feel more like a person. And that's a little cute. They go underwater. They're swimming around. There's a joke about lobsters being like bugs, and that freaks out Shiki. Then they find the ship.
It turns out it's basically speciesist because it's not the fact that they're creepy crawly that freaks him out. It's just literally the fact that they fall within the insect kingdom that bothers him. So
there you go. They find the pod and there's a dead guy in it, and Shiki's like, "No, my friend."
Actually, other best part of the chapter, because he sees this skeleton and he's like, "No, we were too late." It's like, no, he's been dead a long time.
It's almost weird because it almost should be a joke, but it's not. Where you're just like, why does he think he just missed saving this person's life? But they're like, and this is so weird. I assume we'll find out why this ship crash landed, because it ultimately serves no purpose in this chapter except for the characters to be like, "Hey, see that city under there?" They're basically like, "Oh wow, look at this, an underwater city. This is crazy." So there's a city under the sea. So they're gonna go explore it, and they see that there's a temple that looks like it has a mural carving. I don't know what the word for it would be. A little image that looks kind of like Mother on it. So hey, they found something down there.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that we've covered those two chapters together because not a lot happened in either of them. So.
No.
Although it isn't good to know that the real Oracion Seis is alive and well. So
there had to be. It's the fact that they have such similar names that bothers me. Why is one group the Oracion 6 Galactica and the other group is the Oracion 6 Interstellar? It's such a weird. It's very comic booky, where you're like, the only reason it exists is if you have the built-in nostalgia for the Oracion 6 groups, the others, because there's still no reason why these groups are called the Oracion 6. They just are.
It would be like if, in One Piece, if the Navy had a group of elites specifically designed to oppose the 4 emperors, and they were called the Quad Emperors or something like that. It's just something like absurdly similar to it.
The 4 leaders, and you're like, that's very similar to the 4 emperors.
The 4 czars. Like, oh, well, now you're just really pushing this. The 4 imperials.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can get the copyright.
All right. Okay. Are we on
Chainsaw Man?
Chainsaw Man.
Brum, brum, brum.
So, chapter 81, Paw. Last time, Makima brought Denji to her apartment and asked him what he wanted his reward for killing the Gun Devil to be. Which, he didn't kill the Gun Devil, but he killed the offshoot of the Gun Devil, so, okay. And he told her he wanted to be Makima's dog, to which she reacts with a little bit of surprise, and she's like, okay, what do you mean by that? And basically, this is heavy. Denji essentially says that he's had a lot of really hard shit to have to think about and deal with while he's been, part of this team and this mission. And it's tiring and it hurts to think about. And he doesn't want to have to deal with that anymore. Because at first he just had to think about, well, I didn't, have to die. But now I've got all these other things to think about. When I, killed Aki, the only reason I did it was because there were all these other people that would have died if I didn't stop him. And I figured that I had to do it. But then after I had time to think about it, I realized there might have been a better way. And maybe he only died because I'm stupid. And, maybe I wouldn't feel this bad if I'd never become friends with him in the first place. And I don't want to have to think about this because it's all I can think about from the moment I wake up until the moment I fall asleep. And it's like, oh, yeah, man, that's, yeah, you're learning what being an adult is like, I'm afraid. Yeah, it kind of sucks. And it's not something you should have to deal with while you're, possessed by a devil and trying to kill other devils. So he just says to Denji, why don't I just leave the thinking to you? And then I won't have to think or feel like this. And so Makima pauses for a moment and says, you're serious? And Denji doesn't say anything in response. He just like, yeah, deuces. Which is like, are you sure you're actually mentally drained, Denji? You seem very calm and mellow all of a sudden. It's like, yeah, you do it. All right. I mean, you sure you want to do this? Because all my dogs obey me with complete obedience. It's like, that's fine, man. It's cool. Yeah, I'll do that. So she starts basically treating him like a dog, having him present his paw, having him roll over and stuff like that. And she's like, oh, what a smart dog you are, Denji. And Denji starts to feel at peace. He's like, yes, this is my right answer. And then the doorbell rings. And Makima says, "Oh yeah, she's here. I called power over." So she has Denji stand up, and Denji's like, "Why'd you call power over?" And Makima says, "Dogs mustn't think." And so Denji's like, "Yeah, woof." So she takes his hand and says, "Come on, let's go get her. You open the door, because I'm going to kill her." And Denji goes, "Woof." Huh? Like, he's really, really trying to turn his brain off, but this seems very important, so he's having a hard time doing that. We get a 2-page spread just of Makima leading Denji to the door, because this is what we call building tension. Literally, as soon as she said, "I'm going to kill Power," I have to go through the next several pages going, "Oh my god, is Power going to die?" And this giant fucking 2-page spread is making me go, "God damn it!"
Plus, I mean, you come into somebody's house and they have that painting, you have to recognize they're probably pretty evil, right?
Also, check out her shoe shelf. It's very nice. Yeah. Also, there are things on that shoe shelf that I don't recognize. Is that a candle holder? Is that a radio? I don't know. Also, she's got a mini cactus. She's got a couple of mini cactuses.
Yeah, well, one of them's a lint roller. As someone who owns a dog, dog hair is fucking everywhere. So,
lint roller. Okay.
Should probably get one of those myself.
Also appears there is a candle holder potentially there too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're just delaying as much time as possible so we don't have to open the door of the next page. Like, it's kind of cool. I wonder how she waters it. Is that a sequoia? Is that a thing?
She's got an umbrella holder with 2 umbrellas in it. Why does she need 2 umbrellas? She lives alone.
I didn't think you could have a shelf just for boots. I guess it would have to be a bigger shelf than the rest. You must have had to have that custom ordered. Or maybe, you know what? I don't know a lot about women's shoes. Maybe they make shelves just for the boot size women's shoes. That would be interesting.
Another look at what I thought was a candle holder. It's narrower from the front, so maybe that's actually her Wi-Fi station.
That could be. I wonder what she watches. Do you think she watches Umbrella Academy? I wonder what her tastes.
Umbrellas.
Yep. Just anything to not make it so we have to open that door.
This is actually what it is. It's actually the opening to an Umbrella Academy episode, because that's the umbrella there is going to be the umbrella in the opening.
Oh, yeah.
Makima leads Denji to the door as Denji gets more and more confused and hesitant. He's like, "What? What did you say? Were you joking? What, Ms. Makima?" And she just says, "Go on, Denji." And then Denji, at the same time as he gets that image in his head of the person behind the door saying, "Don't open it," she drowns it out saying, "Open it. You be the one to open it." And Denji still hesitating, so she pulls his head in and kind of whispers in his ear and says, "You don't have to think about a thing. Trust me." So he looks at the door handle, and he reaches for the door handle, and he thinks to himself, when I open the door, Power's going to be there, smiling. She'll pull out a party popper, and she'll be holding a cake. And wait, why will she have a cake? Oh, right, because tomorrow's my birthday. And he opens the door, and Power's standing there with her jacket kind of half off one shoulder. She's got a cake that says "Happy 17th birthday, Denji." And they start to greet each other. And Makima Yusuke's Power. She literally holds her hand out like a gun and goes bang. And Power's torso explodes.
The ruthless thing is the shot on the next page where you just see her feet and then her head, and you're like, oh, that's a pretty gruesome way of showing how much of her is left.
Now, here's the thing. She still might not be dead because she is Power. But this looks bad, and they did say that Denji was going to be responsible for Aki and Power's deaths. So, uh-oh. So Denji looks at Makima, and he looks down at Power's body, he looks at Makima, and Makima's like, "Oh, your hands are cold again, you poor thing. Should we go back inside?" And Denji is clearly in shock and just doesn't seem to know how to react as we end the chapter, and Power is seemingly dead. Yay!
I really want, there should be a small panel of the Future Devil on, a street corner away going, "The future rules! The future rules!" And I'm like, I fucking hate you, Future Devil!
We're gonna get, What if we get just like a Devilman ending and like the entire world goes under, everyone's dead, except the future devil is still floating around going, "The future rules!
Future rules!
It's like, fuck you, future devil.
I hate you so much.
Huh. So I put up on my Twitter when I read this chapter just the words "I actually gasped," because yeah, like when I was reading this, I was kind of reading it, like this, like eyes wide, hands in front of the mouth, like, oh my god, are they really gonna do this? And then they did it, and I was like, oh! So
it's such a ruthless way of doing it too, man. But it's great.
Like Aki had the whole big tragic death. The first death was, it just kind of happened, and we didn't even notice really when it happened. But then he died by Kazami's hands after all the buildup, and there was the snowball fight thing going on, and Denji was crying, and I was just like, yeah, Power's dead, and Denji's kind of in shock, and that's it. Which it does make me hesitate to say, like, well, maybe Power's not dead yet, because this seems like an incredibly sudden way of doing it. But hey, it was a big shock when I read it, so credit's there.
Absolutely. Very good chapter.
And we're on Bone Collection next, aren't we?
Nick, Bone Collection is canceled.
Final chapter. Everyone clap.
Everyone, congratulations, Bone Collection.
I Want to Live with You is our chapter title. This is a weird chapter.
It's perfect. Don't you dare say anything about it other than it's perfect. This manga died as it lived, rolling across the street on a dumpster on fire, just shooting guns into the air.
Last time is the last part of a string of bone attacks that Kazami and Pyra were using. Pyra had Kazami produce the bone wedding because she wants to get married to Kazami, and as part of the wedding, the QB's gonna just die. It's just kind of like, it's kind of like the undercard, it's like it's like at 6, Kazami and Pyra's wedding. At 6:30, the QB's death. At 6:32, the after party of the wedding. So the giant skeletal priest thing is conducting, is having them go through their vows and saying, hey, Kazami Janai, do you take Pyra to be your wife? Blah 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 blah. You may now kiss the bride. And Kazami's like, oh wait, hold on, what is happening? And he apparently didn't recognize Pyra, despite her being addressed as Pyra multiple times, because she's almost human now. Everyone who has been summoned from various places is somehow less confused by Kazami than Kazami, because they're like, I was just drinking at home. How did I get here? Rino's in like her nightgown, and she's like, I was going to bed.
The best one is the girl, though. The glasses girl.
The glasses girl, who was introduced very ominously several chapters ago. The fact that she was visiting the yokai prison island seemed like she was going to be a big deal. She says, I'm an old ruins otaku and was looking forward to touring yokai prison island, but the boat was canceled. The island was locked down, and now I'm here. And Kazami's thought to sum this all up is, isn't that super depressing? Yeah, I think I'd be depressed too if it seemed like I was going to be important. Then it was just like, no, I didn't have time to go through that story, so she was there for no reason, basically.
Yeah, I don't have time to tell this story, so you get a one-panel explanation of your character at the very end.
The priest tells everyone to shut up, or else he'll make everyone who distrusts the ceremony die 1,000 deaths. He says, there's no escape here until the marriage ceremony is complete, and QB's executed. The QB's like, no! Of course. The priest says, in order to end the ceremony, you must kiss Pyra as a symbol of your vow, to which Kazami gets all flustered, and everyone, behind him is like, you can do it, including the samurai guy who like didn't even know who these two were until now, but apparently he ships it. So
he loves love, Nick.
it's the most samurai thing.
Samurais are all about love, you know.
Just like it'll be so great when that samurai kisses that other samurai, the way that samurai do.
Well, I don't know if he used the word kiss. It'll be great when that samurai's that samurai. Like he's just a smurf.
Reno is, quote, the lone dissenter, because of course she's upset because she was jealous of Pyre because she had a thing for Kazami, probably. But she doesn't say that she's upset or anything. She just kind of goes, sniff, I'm feeling frustrated. Aren't we all? So Kazami's like, hey, come on, I can't do this all of a sudden. And then Pyrus, looks upset for a minute. Is like, well, do you not want to? Kazami flashes back to his little friend, pardon me, his Kappa friend that got executed because, bad reasons beforehand. And the Kappa's just like, don't you hate me? Aren't you scared of me? Why are you being so nice? And Kazami was just like, you ask too many questions. Like, I don't hate you, I don't fear you, because you're my friend. And the Kappa said, well, don't change, Kazami. Keep using that spell. And I can tell one day you'll be the one who will bridge the gap between yokai and humans, because this is the way that children think, Chris. Is in these long-term political terms.
They're like, one day you'll be the one to end species injustice throughout Japan.
Kazami lifts up Pyra's veil, and he says, I guess I don't mind. And we get a shot of all the onlookers, and it's a weird shot because... So Reno is like covering her eyes, but also peeking through them, which don't really get how that fits her character.
I don't think that's Reno. That's the boy, Aka-chan's boy person or whatever.
Well, but she's wearing the nightgown that
I think that's just I think it's just what the boy of that group wears.
So Akifuyu is also there, and
no, he doesn't show up until later. So I guess I guess that is her, huh?
And Akifuyu is like trying to cover the twins' eyes, but she's doing a bad job of it. And then there is Bei-chan, who apparently is sickened by the thought of them kissing because he's going, ooh. So very odd. And then he's like, how about I kiss you on the forehead instead of kissing your lips? And he goes on this whole thing of like, oh, it should be really important. I don't want to, I feel like we should get to know each other first, maybe. Oh, and immediately everyone's like, fuck you, Kazami, you suck.
Say that in the last chapter. You suck, Kazami. Credits.
So he's like, look, I do like you, even though I end up getting pushed around being around you, but I have fun with you, so as a sign of our friendship, here's a kiss on the forehead. And Pyra is like, no, you're not fucking friendship zoning me, you little pussy. And she tilts her head up so that they kiss on the lips instead. And she says, I'm not expecting you to be manly. That's not why I fell in love with you, but I'm going to grow into the type of woman that you'd want to kiss, you idiot. And Kazami gets a blush because he's like, oh, she likes me, I guess. So nothing happens for a second, and then the QB is like, ha, it's because he didn't kiss her, it's too bad, oh, you're all gonna die, ha ha. And Pyra says, no, actually that was just a lie to get Kazami to kiss me. This is gonna be a great marriage, Chris. All signs of affection are going to be based on trickery and lack of trust, so I'm sure that they'll make it.
Yep.
But then Pyra says, I'll show you the true power of this bone, the true way to defeat QB. And Kazami's wedding band starts to glow, and then all of a sudden the lights go out. And when they come back on, they're in a big old dining hall. And Pyra says, the way to defeat QB is by enjoying the party.
There's a special hell in the world that I get. I feel like I'm there when I get to the bottom of the page, and it's just all the characters' faces going ha 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 ha. Like I'm just like, there's something so unnerving, uncomfortable about it.
It's Very off-putting. So, I guess the priest has taken the form of just a host now. He's just a skeleton in a suit. And I'm going to tell you something, Chris. If this skeleton host guy had just been our hero from the beginning, would have liked this story much more. Just, a skeleton in a suit. I'll follow that guy to the ends of the earth. They begin the reception, and Pyra just goes, Sideshow Gorilla, a.k.a. Akifuyu, Dominatrix Reno, dance! They awkwardly dance. And then they go, cake cutting! And so Pyra and Kazami do the cutting of the wedding cake. And Shishino's like, a samurai sword! Because, yes, they're cutting it with a katana, which doesn't seem like a very good thing to be cutting a cake with. Memories of Kazami and me! They've got a slideshow. Cry! She declares cry. And yes, as you pointed out before, Chris, there's just everyone's heads at the bottom, quote unquote, having a good time. You can tell that they're having a good time because their faces are demented in a way, and that the sound effects ha 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 come out of their mouths.
Especially all these characters who don't generally like have fun, like the samurai being there, and you're like, I don't think has he ever laughed? Is that his character trait?
I don't know, maybe they told a great samurai joke. And then they're like, I summon more guests! That's right, everyone who's been in the series, show up now. And Kazami's family shows up. The 3 kids that they sent back to their abusive parents show up. Milk Boy shows up, so it was all worth it. Milk Boy is here.
Milk Boy's gonna be here. I can probably get on board then.
And then all this is happening, and they're all making ha 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 sound effects. QB is still watching things in the priest's grasp, and he's like, what is going on? Yokai and humans having fun together? And the priest is like, are you jealous? You can't participate. And apparently he's very upset about this.
No!
I believe he's dragged off into the darkness and killed? I think that's what happens here.
Presumably.
We get a big full-page spread of everyone celebrating together, and it is kind of nice. It's the best that art has looked in weeks, I think. Just this one little shot of everyone having a good time. And then we get a time skip. 5 years later. It's such a weird detail. So there's some kids arguing on a bus, and Pyra comes up to them, and her hair is still like partially white and partially black, and she's like, no fighting. That's the rule of the bone bus. All aboard the bone bus. Meep, meep. So, on the bone bus, so the kids try and be bratty to her, so she just lifts them up by their noses. Then Kazami calls back to Pyra while he's driving the bone bus, and he says, hey, the parents will complain again if you abuse their children. And Pyra's like, but I hate the little brats. Then why do you do tours for children if you hate them? So we get an explanation for what has happened in the past 5 years, as Pyra makes all kissy faces at Kazami and causes the bus to nearly crash. That the yokai prison island was replaced by a terminal that connects the yokai and human worlds. Akifuyu was the main architect. She exposed the world to all the unjust research and evil committed by exorcists against the yokai. Yes, we're just fully acknowledging that that was a thing now. It was something that was alluded to, but was never actually brought into proper focus because there wasn't enough time to do so. But yeah, they did some messed up stuff, and we're actually acknowledging that now, as opposed to just kind of like putting it there but not having any characters observe that it was happening. Distrust toward exorcists and the treatment of yokai quickly became big social issues. In order to prove that yokai and humans can live peacefully together, we made many media appearances as a couple. And we see Kazami there with Pyra, and Pyra is like, we're totally in love, and Kazami looks uncomfortable because they're definitely not in love because their relationship is built on lies, which means it's very healthy. In the beginning, we received a lot of criticism, and we see that they got like thousands of dislikes on social media. It's like, what's wrong with people? I don't like these people being in love.
I like
assholes.
I like it as a criticism of the series. They're like, at the start, nobody really liked us, but look where we are now, Ma. Look where we are now.
I would be very bitter if that was the case. So, we see that, at the beginning we receive criticism, but thanks to Pyra, the younger generation, that's right, all the Zoomers will save Bone Collection, came to realize that yokai can actually be cute. So yokai became more accepted. Oh, well, if they're physically attractive, then they've got to be okay then. Because of these things, the Exorcist Federation became smaller, and the samurai was forced into part-time jobs.
This confuses me so much. Because 2 panels later, Reno becomes a member of the 4 Exorcist King. But apparently they're like, we're downsizing. So there really can only be 2 Exorcist Kings. Akifuyu and I guess we'll add someone else. We're going to kick you to the curb, samurai guy. He's just like, what about my 401 samurai K plan? Like, yeah, sorry, man.
As for Reno, she became one of the 4 Exorcist Kings. And she keeps sending me aggressive messages over the Line app. After a while, I started ignoring the red messages. He's just ignoring his friend.
It's just being so annoying.
She's trying to keep in contact with you. I guess you just decided you didn't like her. Okay.
But it was probably Pyra. Like, you're not still talking to that Reno girl, are you?
You know she had a thing for you, right? Don't talk to her anymore.
Yeah.
Jeez. I started working in the Exorcist tourism department, and Pyra and I run a yokai viewing tour for kids. So we catch up in the present. Pyra calls out a bunch of small yokai for the kids to observe and play with and stuff, but there's a little girl who's scared, and so Kazami narrates, not everyone has accepted the yokai, but I'm going to help everyone with my yokai spell. And he's like, look, we can exploit them for resources. Aren't they great? But then he says, there's no difference between yokai and humans. Now let's play dodgeball. And all the little yokai and the kids play dodgeball together. And Kazami's observing them, and he starts crying. He's like, I'm really happy. And then Pyra snuggles him, and he's like, oh no, the kids are watching. And she says, that's why I fell head over heels for you. It's because he's sensitive.
I feel like playing dodgeball with a volleyball wouldn't be very fun.
It would hurt, dude.
It would hurt, and volleyballs aren't that, like, they don't have the aerodynamics you really need. Like, you'd have to either be really strong, or you just have to accept that it's just not going to flow very well. So I think they're very bad tourists.
Yeah.
If they only brought a volleyball to play dodgeball, but then just didn't play volleyball. Like, you have a volleyball, you clearly have enough players, just play volleyball. Nick, this is a great series. Nick, this is a great series.
That's the end of Bone Collection.
It's a great series. This is perfect. Congratulations, Bone Collection. You've moved on to the next realm. And Nick, I just want to know, was this worth using the veto on?
No.
Okay, guys, you heard that. So you all need to find a way.
Get it back. You don't get to redeem it.
No, you guys need to find a way that I can earn another veto. Because clearly, I got the touch for just the hottest of trash. So this is on you guys now. Get me that next money in the bank.
You've got the touch. You've got the power. When all hell's breaking loose, you'll be right in the eye of the storm. Because you summoned that storm, Chris!
I'm going to be like Edge, where I just get like 6 fucking money in the banks. And I'm like, yeah, I crush every one of them. Sometimes I take them because Ken Kennedy sucks penises.
Basically, yes. Oh, done with Bone Collection. Never have to worry about that again. Burn the witch! So... Bone Collection is over. Burn the Witch is just beginning. But, oh, Chris, it's only got to be 4 chapters. Oh, 4 chapters, that's it. I can get through 4 chapters. I can do this. So, people kind of observed that the one-shot is kind of chapter 1 of Burn the Witch, but it just kind of like introduced the world. Nothing really happened in it. And chapter 1, in a way, kind of rehashes stuff that happened in chapter 1 and the one shot anyway. So let's just get into this. It's Burn the Witch, chapter number 1. Witches blow a new pipe.
I love Kubo. It's so much more digestible when you're only getting it for like a short chunk and you're just like, yes, witches blow a new pipe. Yes.
Instead of like looking up and seeing this avalanche that's going to descend on you, it's like, no, I can handle a little bit of an ice flow. It's fine. I can see the end of it. I'll endure it. It'll be okay. I don't have to worry about being buried under this. So, Ninny, the deuteragonist of the series, is who we follow at the beginning of this chapter, talking about why fairy tales are bullshit, Chris. Fairy tales are full of it. Girl gets hit by a magic spell, turns into a princess, gets to wear a pretty dress, gets to make believe she's picking out some hot guy, but ends up getting chosen herself instead. And the magic disappears partway through to boot. Isn't that just the worst? But everyone says they want to be the princess. Are they for real? They know the spell's going to wear off in the middle of things, right? You broke a promise, so, oh well, time's up, so you're out of luck. Think again. You're all a bunch of idiots. None of you have any idea why the spell actually wears off. If idiots are the only ones who get bewitched, I'd rather be the one casting the spell. Oh, she's not like most girls, Chris.
Now, so I recently was playing a gacha game called Sinoalis, which is Yokotaro has some involvement with it. I don't know if you know who that is, but he does Nier Automata. And basically, the story was made by a bunch of people who love his stuff, and they created this game that's basically like, what if every fucking character from Fairy Tail were evil? Because it's really not hard to twist most of them into being evil. You kind of just have them murder everyone in their story, and then you put a bunch of critiques. And I've, like, after playing that game, I stopped because it wasn't actually that very good of a game. But after that, I've become so OD'd on, like, hey man, what if we critique fairy tales? I'm like, yes, we get it. They're not. There's a lot of bad messages in fairy tales.
They were made hundreds of years ago to teach, children to not do certain things. So
a lot of them do reinforce a bad message. Like it is.
They do.
Like when you listen to Cinderella and you're like, oh, this really is a story about how being beautiful is the only way you're really going to get ahead in this world, right? But most of them.
By the way, it does seem as though Ninny doesn't have a problem with fairy tales. She just has a problem with Cinderella, because that's what she's talking about for 90% of this rant.
Yeah.
So while she is mentally ranting to herself, some guys are like, "That girl's hot!" And they're like trying to chase after her as she runs in order to, go down the magic phone booth thing in order to go to reverse London. And then we get our big ass title page, which has no background. Good job, Kubo. And then we cut over to, oh gosh, it's another N name. It's
Noelle.
It's Noelle. That was right. So she's chasing after this dragon deer thing. And she casts Keto. It's Keto. Like, it just is. And right as she catches up with the deer dragon thing, another dragon thing, but it has, like, a boar body and it's really big, and it's got, like, talons and stuff, comes out of the forest, so she has to shoot that with some other Keto and chase it off. And then Ninny shows up and she casts some other Keto in order to catch it. And then she's like, hey, isn't that a bad buck? That's an A-rank harvest. What were you going to do if I hadn't made it here in time? And they start arguing over currencies that they're earning, because this is actually a video game that Kubo's trying to pitch, where you can earn both money and also achievement points for doing stuff. And they don't say what the achievement points are for, but you can earn them.
I mean, Nick, if you put achievement points at something, I'm going to get them. You can't tell me I'm not going to. I'm going to get it.
We find that Noelle is basically just interested in money, whereas Ninny's not really interested in it. She's interested in the achievement points, but because we don't know what they're used for, I don't know why this distinction is important. Anyway, then Balgo, the guy who caused trouble in the last chapter, is causing trouble again in this chapter, as his dragon K9 Osushi is flying around while he tries to hold on to it. He's dangling from its leash and stuff. This is causing trouble. Nini and Noelle see this, and Noelle spots Balgo is smiling despite the fact that he's being dragged around by this flying puppy. And so they're like, this doesn't seem too bad. Let's have some tea. But then at that moment, weird mustache guy shows up, the ex-chief, who I believe got fired last time in the one shot. I don't know. I started reading the one shot before we began, and I was like, eh. So
you made the right call.
Then they try to ignore him over that, and they're just kind of like, recapping stuff that happened to him and stuff like that. And they're like, look, we're not getting paid enough money or achievement points to watch Balgo 24/7, so whatever. And so the guy's like, no. Well, I did the rounds to the stakeholders and got you guys approval for overtime and bonus achievements. And then they're like, okay, they finish their tea, and they're like, okay, let's go. They fly off, and Nini says to Noelle, you're doing it for the money, I'm doing it for the achievements. Again, I don't know what the difference is. What are achievement points for? But then Nini says, and if anybody asks, we're doing it for social justice. Right. You're greedy, but you have to pretend you're being good. I gotcha. Balgo, his dog is crashing into buildings and stuff. He apologizes to some guy, some ordinary citizen, who is forbidden from interacting with dragons, as we are told by a very, very, very blunt and obtrusive third-person narrative, which just kind of explains how the world works in a very kind of clunky way, because we just have to get through this because we got 4 chapters to tell this entire story. So the witches show up. They snag Balgo and Otsushi and just kind of pull them down to Earth. Noelle calms down Otsushi until his wings retract, and Nini's like, hey, what did you do to him anyway? And he's like, nothing, we just went on a walk. And then the citizen's like, hey, can you fix my window? It's broken. And Noelle jumps up to him specifically just to say, use dragon insurance to cover it. And then she asks, hey, did you come in contact with the dragon? But she has to do an exam with him. She holds out this kind of flip phone looking device and says, lick this, as we get narration explaining that basically his toxin levels will have been raised if he's been in contact with this dragon, because, yep. And we are told that if Dragotoxin passes a certain threshold, someone will become a dragonclad, which is what Balgo is. Dragonclad are the only ones who can interact with dragons, but they're infected with the disease, and they have a strong tendency to attract dragons once they are infected that way, which is what happens because Noelle is basically trying to figure out why the hell Osushi's wings sprouted, and she basically knows from her experiences with him in the past that there are only a few reasons why this would happen. One being if a dragon is closing in on him. And a dragon closes in on Balgo, and we get the best character in the chapter, Chris. So a dragon looms up. He's got these big bug eyes, starts causing mayhem because he is a dragon, and then he leans back and roars, but the face he makes is very happy. So he doesn't seem like he's going, bah! He just seems like he's going, oh. Look at that guy. He's so happy. So they set up barrier tape, which takes the form of police tape, basically. And Noelle starts fighting the dragon. She knocks it into some buildings and stuff. She immediately gets in contact with Base and is like, yeah, we subdued a dragon. Can I get that reward? And then she's like arguing with the guy over the damage that's been caused. She's like, no, it's not. That's not my fault. Stop complaining, please. It's not, But then as she's arguing, the dragon's face slides off, and now it doesn't look so friendly, Chris. It's got eyes coming out of its neck meat, basically, and it starts attacking them again. And Chris, wouldn't you know it? Once a large monster takes its face off, as if it were taking off a mask, it becomes more dangerous. Who would have possibly seen this coming from a Kubo series? So the dragon is attacking them with its tongue? I don't know, like something comes out of its neck stump, roughly where a tongue would be, and it's attacking them and stuff. It is a dark dragon instead of just a regular dragon. So they have the entire street blockaded off, a bunch of walls and fences and stuff get raised around the area. Notification goes out that there's a dark dragon in the premises, and so Noel and Niddy are going to have to deal with it. And they're like, let's go take this thing out. Because Niddy wants to get into Sabers, which is a special division that actually executes dragons as opposed to just kind of, rounding them up. She flies off to attack it, and then we get more narration about how dragons work. They absorb negative emotions and transform into dark dragons intent on harming people. Definitely not like hollows. The only method of handling dark dragons is eradication, as opposed to regular dragons that they can, corral and just kind of put away somewhere else. Noelle tells Baga to take Osushi and move to a safe place. She summons a really big spell to attack, but we immediately cut over to the Wingbird Supreme Powers That Be, Top of Horns, which is not an awkward thing to call your group at all.
Nope.
A bunch of people gather around a table, including Baz B.
No, Nick, his name's Bruno Bangknife. Come on, he's very different.
He's got the most normal name out of everyone gathered there.
It's maybe my favorite thing that it starts with Bruno Bangknife, and then it goes to Roy B. Dipper, who says things, and then every other character is introduced by Bruno Bangknife just shouting over their portrait. No one else says a goddamn thing. Bruno Bangknife just yells.
There's a Santa-looking dude named Trombone Takinen, a dude in sunglasses blowing bubblegum named Harry Shake, a regal-looking woman who is part of the Liturgy Corps, Sacreds, named Chuntnire Mliev. Her name is Cquuncnire, so that's great. There is an absent member of the group named Sakarin, and there's a Nazi named Sullivan Squire.
Man. Someone really needs to tell Kubo that's not great imagery to call upon. Especially in London, that seems a little distasteful.
They are wearing an SS uniform. Their name has the initials SS, and just to make sure that it's not an accident, they have the lightning bolts for their name, so that it's the Schutzstaffel. So yeah, he's a Nazi. Cool! Aren't Nazis cool looking? I'm just gonna use them for, all the characters in my series, because I think they look cool, and, it's bad look, Kubo, don't do it. So, they talking about this catastrophe that's going on, and eventually Bruno yells over everyone, "This lowlife Balgo or whatever should never have been let loose to begin with. What do you think, ol' Wolfie?" And Baragon is there, and he's got...
He really is.
Wolfgang Slashhout. And he
That's
says,
the best name. It warmed my soul. I've mentioned to people that I was like, look, Jujutsu Kaisen is basically Bleach. It's a lot of the same thing. So much of the combat is here's an incomprehensible person's ability going up against some other incomprehensible character's ability, and a bunch of chaos happens. It's very elaborate and very big, but the one thing it doesn't have is the names. And you don't realize how much the names are important to everything until it's we need the Grand Leader, Wolfgang Slashhout.
Joined by other members, Trombone Takinen and Kentnir Melieve. Also, for that matter, one of the three most important characters in the series is named Balgo Ewain Parks, which is also pretty crazy. Old Wolfie, Wolfgang Slashhout, says, "This matter has also been raised in our core on countless occasions in the past months since it became Dragonclad. We cannot disregard the situation caused by our own inaction. We will commence proceedings to eliminate the Dragonclad Barlgo Parks." So, yeah, apparently they've decided that Balgo is too dangerous to be allowed to live anymore. And so this presumably is going to be the conflict that Nini and Noelle are going to have to deal with. Do they choose to go along with promotion and money and stuff with the organization that pays them, or do they protect the person that Noelle seems to be a little bit protective of? So.
Yeah. I don't really have too many thoughts on this series, honestly. It's 4 chapters long, and the first chapter is like, remember this world you read about like a year ago? Well,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to catch back up on it, and it's a kind of interesting world, but for me, the chapter is more about like, yes, I remember Kubo and his weird artwork and his lack of backgrounds and his stupid character names. Like, all that stuff's kind of warm, like a nice warm bath I'm getting into. Where you're just like, yes, weird Nazi references in your series that you don't seem to have much of an idea about its execution. Excellent. Classic Kubo. And that's really kind of where it ends. I really don't I have zero feelings on Nini or Noelle or Balgo. Like, the world's kind of silly. I don't know why there are achievement points referred to as just thusly achievement points. But I'm excited for 3 more chapters because I know it will end, and I will not feel any different. I feel like by the end, I'm still going to be like, that was nice having Kubo back in the magazine, right?
So thus far, it seems as though the best measure of this series is just going to be, yep, it's a Kubo series. Because you know what? People who liked Bleach are going to like this because it's a Kubo series. And it's got all that weirdness in it. And you know what? It's not going to last long enough for me to get sick of it. So, okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on then to talk a little bit about Magu-chan God of Destruction, Chapter 8. Magu-chan, by the way, seems to be doing okay in terms of reader response to it, it seems like. But
it's
sure
a little
we'll
too. I was gonna say it's a little too soon to tell. I think the very important thing is seeing when volume results came out, because it ranked very high, but I believe Bone Collection did too its first time. So that might not mean a ton if its volume sales aren't particularly great.
Chapter 8, a scorcher of a duel. Basically, it's fucking hot, and there's no AC in Ruru's house. There is a funny joke at the beginning because Ruru is, just sitting right in front of a fan trying to cool off, and she's like, "Magu, how can you not be hot?" And Magu's like, "I am a superior being. I am impervious to elevations in atmospheric temperature." And then she looks at Magu, and Ruru thinks like, "You look like you'd be cool. Help me cool down." She tries to pick him up to put him on her head like an ice pack, and he just collapses like he's made of Nickelodeon slime, basically. And she realizes, oh, you're not handling the heat well at all. So she decides that they need to cool off. So she's like, oh, I know. We've got this shaved ice maker in the house. So, you put ice in the top of it and you make shaved ice and then you put some flavoring in it. Magu thinks at first it's some sort of torture device. And Rue just, again, unfazed as always, just stop thinking about gross stuff. And it's like, no, so you make dessert with this. Magu digs into some that she makes, and he's like, this is just water. It holds no nutritional value. So Ruru gets upset about this, and she's like, I'm going to prove to you how great shaved ice is as a dessert. I'm going to go buy some more toppings, so you stay here and watch the house while I go get some more shaved ice. The descendant of the Holy Knights, Izuma Kisaragi, shows up at the house at just that moment, and he's like, I had this pigeon looking out for you. Okay. All right. Then he spots the shaved ice, and Izuma's like, wait a minute, that red liquid on top, it looks like blood. What have you done to that pearl girl? And he gets the exact same thought in his head about the ice shaver that Magu did. And of course, Magu has to say things in just the most suggestive way possible in terms of making it seem like he killed her by being like, she currently is carrying out a mission, using her very being to provide me with sustenance. And he looks like he's got blood dripping out of his maw. So Izuma's pissed off. He starts to attack. Ruru shows back up at her house with all the stuff to make shaved ice, while Izuma is panting, trying to catch Magu while the pigeon flies around the room. It's being very helpful. Izuma says, all right, time to finish you off, and Ruru steps on him to be like, stop it, you know. And then Izuma collapses from the heat because he's basically suffering from heat stroke because it's that hot, and he was also, you know, running around while wearing basically a leather jacket. So she makes some shaved ice, and Izuma comes to see Magu working the shaved ice maker, cranking it around because, you know, that's what you would expect a god of destruction to do. And they make some shaved ice, and Ruru's got all sorts of different toppings in it. Magu disagrees with her declaration that it's the ultimate shaved ice because it doesn't have enough nutrition in it, so he just dumps an entire meal on it so that he can have that instead. And then he offers it for Izuma to eat because he's like, yo, feast on the grace of a god. Izuma throws Magu away and then says, I will crush you once and for all with my holy sword. And he takes out a fan instead because he realizes, oh, right, my holy sword was taken by the police. Reality just comes. She's like, we can't let you have this sword. So Izuma tries to attack using the fan instead. He uses a sword attack and casts Arctic Blizzard on them. And they're just like, yay, it's all nice and cool instead. And then Magu sucks up the blizzard that he casts at them. And also some flavoring, I think. Yes, he sucks up flavoring at the same time as the ice. And he's like, concentrated animal fat. I understand now, yes. Izuma gets upset because he has been defeated again, so he runs away. But before he gets away, Ruru's like, hey, you left your jacket and all, and this pigeon and stuff. Take them with you.
What's the part that would be high in protein?
I don't know.
I'm really trying to think. I'm like, I don't 100% know what he has there, but I'm like, what thing on that would have a lot of protein in it?
From sauces,
yeah.
That's a good question. Well, it looks like one of the tubes that he is squeezing says Miruku on it. So maybe it's some sort of cream that might have protein in it.
That's a lot of protein for cream. Maybe he's eating that shit. Like, it looked like he dropped like a bunch of beans and shit. So maybe that's him sucking up the beans that were like thrown on top. I could see something like that, maybe.
And it's hard to tell what's on the second bottle. So.
Yeah.
Anywho, so Ruru gives Izuma his stuff back and he leaves. And Ruru says, like, you know, I wish that you, Magu, would get along with him because, you know what, you guys have a lot more in common than you think. And we get this kind of, like, little collage of how they seem to have the same reactions to a lot of things. Destroying what they don't understand, being confused by modern technology, etc. And we cut over to Izuma to see him having some of the shaved ice that Ruru made. And he's like, it's sweet. So, nice little chapter.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, Chris, it's time. Paradox Ghostwriter.
It's penultimate chapter, as we've just found out as well.
Yep. Chapter 13, Rider. Ding, your cancellation's almost ready. So
almost. Why is it dinging then? It's not ready yet. It's just like
it's a warning beep, you know.
Can you imagine how fucking annoying it would be if my microwave dinged to be like, your food's almost ready? Like, but it's not? What the fuck is this? Like if your alarm went off to be like, almost time to wake up.
So, I can sum this chapter up very quickly. Tepe had the Mirai robot freeze time for everything except for him and anything he interacts with, so that he can just spend as much time as he wants writing manga. And he writes manga for probably centuries, honestly. So, he eventually just like stops keeping track of time as he is writing manga.
it makes me laugh because I mentioned last week, I was like, he's gonna write his own series and that's gonna be what teaches her, because that it seemed like stuff that he created himself is the only thing I really get through to Ayano. And then it's really like, oh no, he's just gonna outwork himself more than her. He's like, you can't die of exhaustion if I do it first. Ah shit, I can't die of exhaustion here.
The rules of the world of frozen time that he's in are that he doesn't get hungry, he doesn't get tired. And so he just writes manga and 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 writes manga. He writes like the entirety of White Knight 5 times and then says, now I have to draw something that outdoes it. And then his watches run out of batteries. I mean, he could have just gone and gotten more, but whatever. And he's like, looking back on it, measuring time was a big source of mental support, but now I don't think I need it anymore. However many thousands of days, however many thousands of years it takes, I will never break down. For all of this time, I had nothing unique to offer, nothing I could say to the readers, but now it's different. I finally remembered, and that's why I draw, not to force Aino to give up on her dream. There's something very important I need to tell you through manga. Teppei's entire room is full of manuscripts.
I like to think of, because he has to, he's been doing this for what? I think somebody counted, it's at least 34 years as it is before he eventually just loses track.
Right.
So, I like to think it's him, be do, and just punching through a window so he could break into an office racks and steal more paper. Because he's like, yeah, when you're drawing for 34 years nonstop, you kind of run out of paper. It's been he's like, guess I'll take a quick trip over to Tokyo to smash it and see what fucking shit they got over there. And once time stops, they're like, ladies and gentlemen, there's a real panic. There is no paper left in all of Japan. It's all been used.
So, Teppei finishes up the chapter after looking down at one last manuscript. I guess he's satisfied, and then he runs off. And as he's running off, he happens to spot some kid who's in the middle of dropping his ice cream cone. That's kind of it.
He puts the ice cream cone back in his hand so he won't drop it.
Oh, he puts the ice cream cone back. Okay, yeah. That's nice of him.
Yeah.
So I do like that, yes, the answer to we have to prevent Aino from working herself to death is I'll work myself to death instead. So...
It basically is. I didn't think they'd go so far as to be like, Teppei doesn't have a story in his heart. Or at least that's what he thinks. But actually, no, he doesn't. He needs magical abilities and the ability to write nonstop for 34 straight years before he has a manga worth sharing with the general audience. You're like, that can't possibly be right. What lesson is that?
What if he does hand it over to Aino? It's like, hey, look at this. And she's like, this is kind of bad.
She's like, I kind of feel like...
It feels like you wrote this after you spent a long time telling yourself what would be good and never asking anyone else for an opinion for literally years. Have you actually taken a look at this? Literally all the characters are either named Teppei or a girl Teppei wants to fuck.
You really overwrote this, and I can't help but feel like this is the result of 34 plus years of nonstop magical manga making thanks to a robot microwave. And you're like, I mean, the robot wasn't the microwave, so no, stupid, you're wrong.
It's such a weird message because it seemed as though we were going in the direction of yes, if you have a story within you that is trying to, be created, then that is, sometimes it's very important to do that, but you have to have some form of balance or otherwise you're going to kill yourself. And it took that and said but if you're really obsessed and you had a time machine that would make it so you didn't die, then that would be great. It's mixed messaging. And
it's so phenomenal because you really, when you first read this series, you assume that it's going to be a story about manga can change the world. In the same way most manga tend to portray manga as something that changes the world. 20th Century Boys did it. Dr. Stone did it. This idea that manga has this way of touching the soul in a way no other medium can. And anybody with the right amount of passion can tell that sort of story, except Teppei. He's really bad at conveying thoughts, so he needs 34 years in a void realm before he's able to put something out that's somewhat enjoyable. And you're just like, this can't possibly be the right message to send.
Teppei's got to get over to Aino's place, and he's going to show her the manuscript he's made, and it's just going to be that one homework project from SpongeBob that just goes, That's it.
I really want them to like she reads the manga and she's like, this is pretty good. You know what power really changed the world, though? That magic time-stopping ability that lets you alter the world in your own ways for 34 years. That's the real magic. Fuck manga. We need that power.
I'm going to go work myself to death creating a time machine.
Like, no! She's always going to work herself to death. I'm just giving her a more ambitious dream to follow.
It turns out crushing her dream wasn't the answer at all. It was just teaching her the value of moderation.
That robot lied to me.
Beep boop.
Remember, I'm not a robot. I'm some construct of an author's will or a god. I'm not really sure. Fuck, I love this series. It's so dumb. And I can't wait to find out what the last chapter is. I really cannot wait. It's fueling
What's going
me.
to result from this madness? Yeah.
Like, you can't show something. Like, he has to hand her the manuscript and she has to look at it without the readers ever seen it. Because if he hands her, like, fucking, he's like, this is super White Knight. It's like White Knight Kai. I basically trimmed it down a little bit shorter. And she's like, oh, this is the perfect digestible amount of content. I no longer want to work myself to death.
Well, Chris.
All right.
It seems that Teppei might not have learned the true lesson that there was to learn from this. Will someone else learn, though?
I don't know,
or will
Nick.
we never learn?
We'll never learn. Question 170. A pizza bet equals Tomorrow Night's Pixie Part 2. So we continue with life on the island. Excuse me. I was about to call him Luega. Uega is watching like the kids play. He's a little bit tired. And then one of the kids just like, hey, is it true that you're dating Dr. Asumi from the infirmary? And he's like, where'd you hear that from? They're like, yeah, it's a small island. So, you know, people kind of heard
It's around, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, whoa. And there's a moment of him being like, no, that's a misunderstanding. And one of the girls like, yeah, you really think he'd have a girlfriend? He's too derpy. And he's just like, well, come on, be nice. Why you gotta be like that? But then we get a flashback to the night before where they've put a little curtain over the hole in the wall and Eureka helps show her the stitching and she's like, wow.
It's actually a cute little detail because they're basically treating it like an official door at this point. There's a little sign next to it that says knock before opening and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And she's like, wow, you really thanks for your help. This really has made this a lot easier. And Uega's like, wow, and you've really progressed so quickly. So they share just a little bit moment there, and eventually she's like, you know what, I'm glad because I'm glad we met again because when you're around somehow I feel safer. And Uega has a little blushing moment. She's like, oh, did I make your heart race? And he's like, oh, stop it. So she's like, you gotta stop it, the landlord's gonna come in and be really angry. So we got back and it's just him thinking about her thing of oh, I feel shy about this, but I'll make sure to show you my affection. He's like, oh, what did she mean by that? Sick girl shows up and basically it's just like, thanks for helping me. I'm kind of a space case sometime. And then a bunch of the older teachers come up and they're just like, oh, you saved the world. You saved that student, whatever. Nick, I'm running on a lot of expired date quo right now, so the things I say might not make a lot of sense. I don't really know what this fucking conversation's for. Oh, basically they're like, you be the health coordinator.
They decide that he's the health coordinator now, which means that when Asumi comes to the school to give kids their shots, Yuiga's the do. It's an excuse for them to be meeting up in another location aside from just their apartments.
Yep. All right. So there's just a little moment. Asumi is like, hey, come on, settle down, be a good boy. This won't hurt. And the boy's like, you're lying. And, runs away. And then there's one who flips up her skirt. It's very rude. It's not a nice thing to do. And they're like, it'll hurt for Sir with such a nervous doctor. You're no good. And Yuega's like, hey, hold it, you kids. And they just run away. And Yuega's like, are you okay? And she's like, it's okay. Her mom's like, it's a good learning experience. This is different from what she learned in school and in simulations. Now she has to deal with real human patients. And Yuega's like, oh, dealing with real people. He remembers that being a thing before. So he goes, finds the kids. They're all like eating ice cream. They go to run, but he's like, nope. I guess he buys them ice cream or something. Basically, he hangs out with the kid and explains like, yeah, we were poor, but I got to learn cool tricks from being poor because you kind of learn to appreciate everything.
Let me rap with you kids.
Come on, kids. And of course, one little kid's like, you were a kid once? And he's like, yep, and I hated shots too.
Amazing works.
Yep. And I'm honestly still not wild about them. And then the one girl who called him derpy is like, wimp, and you're a grown-up. He's like, come on, grown-ups are people too.
That means you have to be nice to me.
It's in the rules. He's like, hey, grown-ups are people too, and as a person, I want you kids to know me better, and I want to know you better too. So he goes home, and Asumi's there wearing her maid outfit, and she's like, your dinner and your bath are ready, and the house is sparkling clean too. And he's just like, oh, senpai, you're my maid outfit. And she's like, yep, as I said, it's embarrassing, but I promised. And hey, I think I've still got it going on, right? And he's like, oh, this was what you meant by showing your appreciation. And Yuega has like a moment like, wow, she looks more grown up. It's like, wow, she's somehow gotten even sexier from it. And she's like, oh, what's up? You don't seem displeased. And he's like, and she's like, I really was hoping you'd like it. Now, please let me practice my ejections. And he's holding up a syringe. And he's like,
what does this entail? Because injecting anyone with like anything could be potentially dangerous.
I was like, you can't fill it with nothing. So
that'll just make him have a heart attack.
She has a little moment too where she like hops on top of him and she kind of almost has like a yandere. Like she's like, don't worry, I won't hurt you. And then she just kind of looks off to the side and Yuega's like, are you afraid of real human patients? And we cut over to the next day where he brings the kids back to get their shots. And Asumi's there. She takes a big deep breath and then she's like, hey, I heard that you know of a great fishing spot. Would you mind showing me sometime? And the kid's like, oh wow, you like fishing too, Azumi Sensei? Do you like boat fishing or shore fishing? She's like, there, done. They're like, what? She's like, yep, that's all it was. It's all getting a shot usually was. And everyone's like, whoa, if he got that shot and he hates getting shots, maybe it doesn't hurt so much. So then she just talks to all the kids, says these different things, and Asumi's mom's like, so what kind of magic did you use? He's like, well, just a little innocent chat. And we cut to the night before, where after Yuega basically confronted her on it, basically says, hey, here's what I learned about those kids. I went and talked to them and learned a little bit about each individual one, and here's the details that you can use to basically get in with these kids. And Asumi's like, wow, thank you for telling me. I don't know if this makes it less scary. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not a doctor, so I really don't know how scary it is to face real human patients, but I do know one thing. I know how capable you are at sincerely connecting with people and genuinely making them smile. So I think it's fine if you're scared. Your fear shows just how much you care about your patients. And it's a very little sweet message. And Yuega takes the rest of the kids away. And Asumi sits on the rooftop and she's like, oh, man, he's too big for his britches. But I guess it is true that I feel kind of safe around him. And she pulls out the little Dr. Fish keychain that Yuega had made for her, 8 years ago now at this point in the universe. So she still carries that around, which is a very sweet thing. And then she says, maybe tonight I'll wear my nurse outfit.
It's very sweet.
It's very, very sweet.
I do definitely appreciate that, yeah, we've got this, plot that feels like, yes, this is, an Asumi plot. So... it's nice.
Yeah, it's a very sweet chapter. I really do like Yuega going out of his way and doing this very simple but very meaningful thing, and it calling back to something that we had seen before when she had the patients basically at the maid cafe and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we got to learn how awesome she was at understanding people and paying attention to their ailments and stuff.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Stone.
It's time to get stoned.
Z equals 162. Down the Earth-stained path. We've got a color cover page for this chapter, which is basically done like a movie poster, which is nice. They're making a freaking tunnel boring machine under Chrome's direction. We start off with Chrome and Tsukasa is there, and Chrome is shouting at Hyoga, "No, you can't!" As Hyoga stabs forward with his spear, using his Konryu spear technique, and it looks like he stabbed Chrome. And he was actually just digging into the side of a little hole with it. He's starting to tunnel that way instead. That's all. It was a fake out to make it look like he was betraying them. It was a joke. Yeah. And so Hyoga's upset with them because he's like, "You guys freaking making me use my martial arts to dig a freaking hole like this." So he starts digging that way. But Tsukasa points out they're going to need a proper drill before they strike bedrock, which won't be too much longer. But Chrome says he's got Kaseki working on that. We cut over to where Kaseki has just forged a drill, which he refers to as a spiral sword. It's very cool looking. Mose and Ginro's bodyguard are immediately like, it looks like it would be great for impaling and eviscerating people. So there you go. Kaseki has no idea how the drill's supposed to work. But they're like, okay, we have to deliver this to Chrome's location. So they load it up onto the mobile science lab, and they're like, hey, there's a lot of stuff, and digging the tunnel is going to be, really, really big operation. And whoever does the deliveries should probably stick around to help them. But if we send a big group with a lot of manpower, then they're going to notice it. So Ryusei just says, well, in that case, we need to send a man with the strength of 100. So, of course, Taiju is the one. And we get, a brief little montage of Ryusui instructing Taiju on where to go on a map. And Taiju's setting off, but before he leaves, he looks back at his buddy Senku, and he tells Yuzuriha and Luna that he is leaving Senku in their hands to look after him. And then he gets in the mobile science lab, and he starts driving off. Then Luna's two suitors see it going, and they're like, hey, they're sending a car, so one of us should probably tail this thing. And they start fighting immediately because they're like, hey, you keep it. I'm going to keep an eye on Miss Luna. You go tail that thing. When they get in a fight over it, Taiju pulls to a stop next to them, gets out, and says, "What's up?" Because Taiju wanted to quote a commercial he was born after it aired. But he greets them, and he's like, hey, you two are probably keeping watch over us, right? Well, if one of you's going to tail us, then why don't you just ride with me and make it easy on you? And so they're shocked by this, but Carlos gets in the cart and rides with Taiju. He tries to talk with Taiju, but they don't understand each other because Carlos speaks English and Taiju speaks Japanese, but he understands a little bit about what Carlos is saying, and he assures them, hey, Luna's doing okay, he's taking care of my buddy. According to Ryusui, she's probably a spy, but that doesn't bother me. They won't treat her poorly, I promise. And Carlos just says to himself, I don't really know what he's saying, but I can tell he's a decent guy. Then we cut very briefly over to the main headquarters on the Perseus, and they're like, did Taiju ever get his driver's license? And we got back over to the science lab, and it's hitting literally every tree that it meets along the way, until Carlos eventually takes the controls, and he is the driver, so he uses his driving skills to pilot a car instead, despite the fact he doesn't really know why he's helping the enemy, but he does it anyway. They arrive on the scene. Carlos is tied to a tree, because... And Taiju's upset about this because he's like, he's the cool dude who drove me here. Carlos overhears them talking about the tunnel that they're making to the castle. They start pulling out the parts from the lab, and Carlos is like, these guys are just kids. Like, they're just a little bit younger than Miss Luna. They're like high school age kids. Are they serious? Are they seriously going to tunnel over to the castle. It's impossible. There's no way they could possibly manage this. And he just kind of like is in denial over this more and more as he sees them working really hard, everyone doing their part, going over Chrome's plans, Chrome assembling stuff, Suika and the others moving stuff into the tunnel and so on. And eventually they get to a wall that they can't progress through under manpower alone, although Taiju's been helping out, helping to dig the tunnel. But they bring the drill in, and it's got a motor hooked up to it, and Taiju pushes it through, and he declares, "We're breaking through," as he starts digging through the tunnel, one earth-stained step at a time. So, cool stuff.
Yep, it's a good chapter.
Nice chapter. Nice, solid, we did a science thing, Dr. Stone chapter.
All right. A second.
Mashle?
Got to get the right background for Mashle. Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 27, Mash Van Dead, and the high tier speed magic. So last time, Mash used his head to crack open Abyss Razor's mask, and now we see Abyss moving backwards, and there's a moment where we glimpse that they have this red eye where the iris is basically, you almost have like kind of a snake slit, and then like the iris is almost like a summoning seal in it. It's very, very scary. And Ash is immediately like, "Oh no, that red eye could it be that? Are you bleeding?"
Did I hurt you?
And Abyss is just like, "You don't know what this eye means?" And Ash is like, "No, I'm sorry." He's like, "Don't apologize." He's like, "Okay." And he's like, he explains like, "All right, this eye, it's called the evil eye. It's a cursed eye that temporarily disables the magic of all who fall under its gaze. And magic is everything in this world. So thus, I am a pariah. I am a target of scorn. Everyone hates me." And Mash's like, "Oh, I feel kind of bad. You can't use that eye on me at all." And the Viscera just like, "No, it's fine.
He does kind of like laugh a little bit too. So I think he does actually find this kind of amusing. So
it's pretty adorable. Abyss is like, "No, look, I am the natural enemy of all magic users. I have been feared and despised my whole life by everyone, even my parents. Though I suppose someone as seemingly blessed as you probably can't understand what it's like to wish you had never been born." So then they use Acceleray's second, and this big dome of arrows shows up, force field. And an arrow.
It's a very Byakuya's Bankai kind of looking thing, the Dome of Swords. So
yeah. So an arrow facing down appears on Mash's chest, and he's like, "An arrow," and he gets cut a whole bunch. And the arrow kind of starts moving down on his body, and he keeps getting cut even when he thinks he shouldn't. And the Abyss Razor's like, "You're surprised by your lack of speed? This field decreases the speed of those within it and grants that speed to me." So Mash is getting slower, and he's just getting faster and faster. So Abyss is like, "You won't get me a second time. This is the end." There's a big flurry of blows, and then Mash is slowly just like, while he's getting cut up, just lifting his fist into the air, and then just punches the ground and explodes it. So it literally kind of like folds in on itself. And he's like, "Wow, even while slowed, he could still exert this much power. But an attack like this can't stop." And Abyss gets punched in the face. And he basically kind of blocks it. He's like, he did that to limit my movement. I need to back off and try. And Mash is stepping on his foot. And he's like,
"So good."
Mash is like, "Got you a second time." And he's like, "I can't move." And the chapter ends with Mash saying, "Full muscles magic, hurricane rush."
It's such a cool moment of like, okay, I need to back away. And he's just stepping on his foot so he can't get away.
It is supremely dope.
Yeah. It's got a little bit more of the comedy that more recent chapters haven't had. But it's still got the cool action that we've been getting in a lot of these recent battles. So, nice chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move over to Mission Yozakura Family. Mission 47. Never not going to react to that. Mission 47. Yozakura Blood. Mutsumi is looking after Tayo, who is not in great shape right now. And she is like praying to her mother to protect Tayo. But of course they can't move him, so they just are keeping put while everyone is trying to look after them. All the rest of the family is out fighting all the people who have been summoned. And they're all tough. They're having a hard time with them. They're just kind of observing these guys aren't getting knocked down as easily by our techniques as a bunch of mooks normally would be. A bunch of them trying to attack Yoichiro and immediately get cut up by a web of his wires that he's got surrounding the entire mansion to prevent anyone from getting near it. And of course, then there is Goliath, the freaking giant dog who's tearing through a bunch of people. So they call over to their leader, who is this guy who's got all of these swelling muscles bulging out of his shoulder. And they're like, hey, we can't hold this guy any longer. He's like, hang on, just keep him occupied. A normal person's compatibility for cherry blossom leaf Hazakura is limited to 3%. Even no men who boasted a 10% rate couldn't make a dent. If you have more than 60%, you still can't let your guard down against them. And then he goes over and he punches Goliath really hard. And Goliath goes flying all the way into the mansion and busts a hole into it. And as the guy follows after Goliath through the hole in the wall, he observes, you deactivated the cocoon mist. How ironic that the biggest weakness of the most sinister family was their love for each other. And Kyoichiro has come up behind him. He's like, I'm not going to let you have an easy death for what you've done, basically. Then there is a crackle going over both of their earpiece communicators. And Kyoichiro realizes the speakers of our devices are being interfered with. And then someone speaks into a ring, activate hibernation, which basically causes a full lockdown of the mansion with the big guy inside the mansion and with Kyoichiro locked outside because he couldn't take 3 steps and get inside anyway. I don't know. Maybe he did it on purpose. I don't know. He just like, all right, I'll go retrieve the previous head's ring from him. And yeah, that's going on. The big guy turns off the power by just ripping some wires out of the wall. Mutsumi is like, oh no, the medical equipment stopped working. And now his room should have backup power. But what if they short-circuited the mansion's entire power supply? What's going on? And I'm cut off from everyone. I can't communicate with them. And she realizes Tayo's pulse is getting weaker. Oh no, he's gonna die. And I feel like even my computer wants me to get through this chapter because an advertisement from one of my programs just popped up. So there's that. So she realizes what she needs to do. And so she goes over to a shelf to where there is a syringe that contains Nanao's Easy Blood Collecting Kit. Okay. And so she puts a tourniquet around her arm and then takes some of her blood out. And we get, narration from her mother, I believe, saying do you understand the blood that flows in our bodies has special power within it. And if you use that power, you can do anything evil, but that also means you can use it for good. Just know that a power as great as this also comes with suffering. If you want to use the power for someone else, it must be someone so dear to you that you'll be willing to accept all of their suffering too. And so she injects Tayo with the Yozakura family blood, the blood that makes people have superpowers. And she takes his hand and she says, you've always come to my rescue, Tayo, and I haven't done anything for you yet, so don't leave me, as she's crying. The big guy emerges. He reaches out towards Mutsumi, but Tayo wakes up and he throws a knife through the guy and all of his bandages go bursting off because he's super healed now. And he picks up the taser gun while holding Mutsumi and he says, don't lay a finger on her. And his eyes have taken on a shape to let you know that he's got the Yozakura family blood. He killed his brother and cried about it. So he's got Sharingan powers now.
Now you're magically evolved.
Nick,
I say we drop Mission Yozakura Family, because this chapter is when I read this chapter I was like, this is either the beginning of the end, which I don't think it is. It's getting a color page next week, which wouldn't seem to indicate it's doing that poorly. This is either the beginning of the end, or this is the biggest chapter in this series to date, and I felt nothing at the end of this chapter. Nothing. And I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I'm not saying the series is bad. It just, for whatever reason, does not connect with me whatsoever.
We'll see you guys next week for Ayakashi Triangle.
Yeah, it's coming in, guys. Look, I'm really glad that
well,
people like this.
I have actually been reading Ayakashi Triangle, and it's not as bad, one, as I thought it was going to be. It's bad, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And two, there would have been more for us to talk about chapter to chapter than this series. So
yeah, it's just the thing where I'm like, I really don't, for whatever reason, this series just doesn't connect with me. And I'm glad people dig it. This isn't me saying it's a bad series. It's a series I generally just feel meh on. And when this chapter came out, which is such a, it feels like it's meant to be a hugely significant chapter, and it still just doesn't move like the needle one way or the other. I'm just like, then it's just not going to change. Like, I could read the series and I'll keep reading it just in the background, but it's like, if this doesn't move the dial a little bit, then it probably just isn't going to move.
So how about this? We'll keep an eye on Yozakura family.
Mm.
And if something happens, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think it is time that we have a series that we don't just have the reaction of, all right, every single week.
Yeah.
And occasionally there has been a little something just here and there. It's like, Mutsumi danced with a beluga this week, but there was an annoying guy in the rest of the chapter. That kind of thing. Sometimes it is so ridiculous that we do make note of it, but it's not that ridiculous.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to read it, I'm not going to fight for it. So
as I said, I'll keep reading it. I just don't want to add it to the recap because I feel like every week I'm coming in with nothing to say because I don't have a feeling on. And it's not like the other series that shall not be named that I didn't have feelings for. That I was like, I at least found stuff occasionally to start talking about or joking about. I just don't have any effort for this series. I don't know. People have different tastes.
Yes. Black Clover.
All right, let's talk about Black Clover. Nick, this is page 261, Shadows of Night, with a pretty cool cover page.
Yeah, we're running through the shadows of the night, so come on, baby, take my hand. It'll be all right.
Indeed.
So give yourself to me tonight.
Yeah, all those things from a song that I would probably remember if I wasn't dosed up on a lot of expired Dayquil. Rhythm of the Night?
Pat Benatar.
Oh. Da 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 da. We are young.
That's not the song.
Well, it's the best Pat Benatar song, so
it is a pretty great song.
It is good. All right, so we open. The Black Bulls are in a church, I guess. I don't know. They're in a city, and a dude I probably should remember, but I just don't, is there, and he's like, "You can't fix this arm," and I'm like, "All right, cool." So we're establishing like something's up with Asta's right arm. It looks like it's going to be a permanent change. At the very least, it can't be immediately just fixed by the first hero they find. I mentioned like, yeah, and the Golden Dawn have been decimated. I'd prefer to have other recovery mages take a look at it, but I'm really glad you only suffered minor injuries. And Fenril, who looks just devastated, was like, yeah, Asta.
Yeah, poor Fenril.
Yeah, he's like, Asta and Yami protected us. That's why. So be sure to give Gauche a proper look. And the guy looks over Gauche and he's like, was he really run through with a giant sword? I mean, this is beyond recovery. The very tissue itself has been reassembled. Gray, I don't think the true nature of your magic is transformation. So a little tease to something more to Gray, which does really kind of emphasize everyone in the Black Bull, except for Magna, having something very cool about them. Like Charmy's a dwarf, Gauche has the magic eye, Charmy's magic is something beyond transformation, and then it's just Magna being like, hey guys, I made a fiery baseball plate! I can use it like a shield!
I'm the 5th most powerful fire mage that's gotten focus in this series.
We see Finro and Vanessa looking very sad. Basically saying, hey, they're going to hold another captain's meeting later on, so all you guys can really do right now is rest up. That night, Asta's resting. His arm starts pulsating. He wakes up in a huff. His book is glowing, and he sees Yami's sword slowly rising out of it. His book has turned Yami's sword into one of his swords, and it's so fucking dark.
That's right, Asta. You got a sword while doing nothing. Again!
At least this one I can tell is different than the other ones. The other three looked identical to me. And there's something so haunting about the way that Asta is just devastated by it. Like, it just hurts him to see Yami's sword become his. Asta starts having this moment where he tries to start running, and all of a sudden he can't move. And someone's like, where are you going? And it's someone in a cloak. And he's like, oh, who's that? Is it his magic that's holding me here? No, I have to go save Master Yami. And the person's like, no, you can't. You are no match for that devil host on your own. Where you're trying to go, there are two others who are just as strong. And even the devil you're counting on has given up on you as hopeless. You don't understand that right arm very well either. So as it is, right now, going anywhere isn't courageous. It's stupid and reckless. And yes, it's just like, but even so, I have to. Because while we're here, Master Yami he's just like, oh, him? Why not just leave him be? And Asta's like, fuck you. How dare you? This is my best friend. How dare you talk to him about that? And the person's like, oh, I'm very familiar with him. He's rough and violent and savage, irresponsible, unprincipled, unfaithful, stinkiest dumps I've ever seen.
It's kind of ugly.
Bad tipper. Like, wow.
He's got shit taste in movies.
Yeah. He enjoys later Weezer, but not early Weezer. So that, I mean, come on.
He never rewinds whenever we rent from Blockbuster. He rents from Blockbuster.
He goes out of his way to use Netflix's disc delivery service instead of using the app. He's like, hey, he just isn't a decent human being. And if he lost, he's just an idiot. So Asta summons one of his magic swords, begins pulling it out, and tries to strike, and then a bunch of shadow hands just push him to the ground. And the individual's like, a human who can't defeat me will never be able to rescue Yami. And Asta just remembers, it's your fault for being weak. And he starts crying. He's like, if only I was stronger. And the person says, you're a fool, but you're a good person. I like you. And they look like a pretty normal person with black hair and a ponytail. But then the horn starts to materialize at the top of their head. And they say, don't worry, Yami's still alive. And Asta's like, Weg? Wait, who the heck are you? And the person says, I am the vice captain of the Black Bulls. Knocked.
German.
Yeah. In my mind, I'm like, Natch. But that's not what it is. It says, knocked. If you want, I'll teach you how to use the devil's power. Bum, bum, bum.
So, Chris, it only took us 261 chapters and 12, I think, prior introductions, but we finally got the introduction of an existing member of the Black Bulls who looks cool in their introduction.
Yeah.
This was a very cool way to introduce a new character at a time that is perfect, because this is the vice captain of the Black Bulls. They have this devil power that Asta is just tapping into himself. And so we have all this stuff to look forward to. Like, hey, Noct kind of has this kind of, he looks down on Yami, but they're companions clearly. So what exactly is the relationship between them? What is all the stuff he's been doing spying in the Spade Kingdom led him to? And what's the story with that little imp guy that's hanging out on his shoulder? So,
yeah. He clearly has devil horns, so he's possessed by a devil magic as well. Mm-hmm. It seems very exciting. Look, it's been a very long time. Probably this is the first time really ever that Black Clover has been like consistently intrigued or intriguing in like an interesting way, essentially. So I'm really excited to continue this storyline. I think that generally this is what I feel like Black Clover always should have been, as opposed to like Asta pulls out a sword. He's like, I punched you, I win. Like everything now is feeling like there's actual weight behind it, and it really has become much more enjoyable.
And yeah, I am very curious about. Hang on. Noshed. Is that better, guys? They're telling us that the ch is pronounced softly. Noshed.
Fuck them.
That just sounds wrong because
they don't get it.
Notch. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't get to tell you what to do. Nick, you bludgeon their German ears as much as you want. Just go hog wild. Like, Ock be leaving. See? You throw out words. You don't even know what they mean. You know?
I think you actually said words there.
I'm just gonna go. There's the one speech, and then it's lines I remember hearing in Wolfenstein. So it's like, "Me Gott in Himmel." That's all I got.
We got in Himmel.
That's all I got. You stab a German dog to the death, and he's like, "Oh my God in heaven," or something like that.
All right. Let's cap things off this week with One Piece chapter 988. Sorry for the wait. Looks like on our cover page, Chris is
Hey, all my friends.
It looks like Pound is not giving up on going after his daughters because he doesn't take no for an answer, I guess.
It's very nice.
So last time, when confronted with all of the minks who are going to, of course, go Sulong with the full moon, Kaido is now being confronted by them, and he's like, "Oh, right. You turn into moonlion berserkers known as Sulongs." But fortunately for him, Jack and a bunch of his warriors have shown up as well, and they are squaring off against some of the soldiers. And of course, Cat Viper and Dogstorm remembers, like, "Oh, he brought to ruin 1,000 years of peace in our city, despite our insistence that there was no samurai there." And then, in a very helpful, "Oh, right, that is what happened" moment, Raizo goes, "I am the one they claimed was not there, Jack!" Oh, thanks. That helped me, because I forgot about that too.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
So, but some other minks step forward, and they're like, "No, Dogstorm, Cat Viper, you two stand back for now. Save your strength for Kaido." And we're introduced to the Whale Forest Guardians, Roddy and BB, which is the most intimidating names ever.
Oh man, it's like if the natural disasters came out and they didn't call them like earthquake and typhoon, they were just like Joe and Jeff. Like you're like, no, I think you need to call them earthquake and typhoon.
And then the Dogstorm Three Musketeers transform as well. They start rushing towards Kaido and his men, who has a bunch of other people do the Sulong transformation. But Jack just calmly orders his troops, "Hey, don't fall back. The Sulong lifespan is short." And a bunch of the troops are like, "Hey, we're all animals too." And we're introduced to one of them, Nangi, who has a line.
Nangi.
And that's his line. Okay, moving on. So fighting breaks out. We cut over to where Big Mom is, and she's like, they flew up through the ceiling. Then there's some scuffling going on as Shinobu has appeared beside Momonosuke during all of the struggling and stuff like that. King happens to spot her before she can loosen the chains and get him free. And of course, he grabs her and throws her off the balcony like a freaking... He skips her like a stone. He throws her so hard. So Momonosuke is still shackled. Or is he? Because, Chris, sometimes Sanji's the worst character, but sometimes he's the best character.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
The shackles fall apart around Momonosuke's wrists as Sanji, invisible, tries to make off with him. He doesn't get away as King springs into action before he can fully get away. The cloaking disappears, and yep, Sanji's there in his full gear that he got from his scumbag family. He starts struggling with King, who quickly transforms into his pterodactyl form, and there's a weird moment where he chooses to make a joke, because he's like, "Hey, a big gaping hole in the stomach could kill someone." So that happens. King's like, just try vanishing if you can. And Sanji's like, "Well, the invisibility is just a visual thing, so I can't vanish, so let me go." I should note that before Sanji started scuffling with King, he actually tossed Momonosuke over to Shinobu, and he even had time for a cool line. It's like, "Hey, Momo, way to drop your name like a man."
Yeah, very cool.
And then he throws him his jersey, go on. So Luffy instructs Yamato to go and help Shinobu protect Momonosuke, and Yamato's like, "Can I?" And Luffy's like, "What do you mean, can I?" And Yamato's like, "Oh right, yeah, he's my son."
Oh right.
Such a dork.
You forgot his character for a little bit.
Let me get in character again. Momonosuke, my son that I had 26 years ago. So, Big Mom has spotted Luffy. She comes charging towards him, and she's like, "Oh, we're gonna kill every last invading samurai and keep this party going." And then she says, "The wedding, the tea party, the feast, you've destroyed everything I look forward to." And she smashes Luffy out of the building. I'm not sure exactly how she hits him, but he makes a hole in the wall and goes flying through it and just ends up at the end of the island, basically outside. And then he's just left going like, "Aw, I want to go up there." But if she follows me, that just means more enemies for them to have to fight. I think that he starts to run, I guess? Maybe?
Nami starts to run.
Nami starts to run. Okay, that's what's going on. Yeah, she takes the opportunity to decide to just book it. And she's got Zeus with her. And then she tries to so when Big Mom tries to use Zeus to call lightning, she's like, "You freaking swiped Zeus from me." So Nami, understands the situation, so she just holds Zeus in front of her as she's running and goes, "Listen, Buster, you gotta make a choice. You gotta make a choice between me and Big Mom." And Zeus is like, "Well, I can't disobey her." And Big Mom freaking pulls Zeus out of Nami's hands and is like, "If you go easy on her, I'm going to make you disappear." Which did make me, because I was thinking during this little scuffle right before this moment, well, I mean, I guess Nami could get a power up by getting Zeus, but how's that going to work if literally Big Mom is responsible for the soul that exists inside of him? And we get a moment of, no, Zeus ain't joining the Straw Hats here.
Well,
as he tries to kill Nami.
Yeah, but Nami's like, we're never going to be friends unless Zeus helps her out.
So sad.
Yeah.
But, Chris, as if this chapter won't already badass enough, Brooke and Frankie come riding in on Frankie's motorcycle. And for a moment, Brooke says, "Activate soul sensor." And Frankie says, "The clock? I got rid of it. For I am the wind. I'm Frankie, the Freedom Rider." And they go ramping up and slice through Zeus and do a wheelie off of Big Mom's face, while Brooke calmly and nonchalantly says, "Consider yourself sliced."
It's so awesome. It's like the moment you need to be like, "Oh right, Frankie and Brooke are just awesome. They're just the best." They're the fucking best. He just nonchalantly fucking wheelies Big Mom's face. Everyone's like, "Who are they?" And he's just like, "Did I hit something?"
I guess they were trying to attack Zeus, and Big Mom just happened to be in the way.
Yeah, like it clearly, like Brooke cut through Zeus, and I guess like they just didn't realize Big Mom's face was right behind him.
And as if Frankie hadn't just had an amazing badass / super cheesy line, and then had the awesome one-liner, "Oops, did I just run over something? Oh well." Nami is super happy to see Frankie there to save her ass. And she goes, "Big bro!" And Frankie goes, "Does someone have a runny nose?"
I'm really hoping... So I've heard a lot of people throwing the idea out there. It would be really cool to see a big collection of the Straw Hats fight Big Mom. Like, essentially everyone, I guess, who's not Zoro, Sanji, or Luffy be there. Because right now, quite a few of them are there. A lot of them have kind of feuds with Big Mom. Brooke stole her poneglyph. Nami's been stealing Zeus. Jinbei, hopefully, if he shows up, has obviously a lot of history with her. It does feel kind of cool. And there is something very satisfying about, like, fucking Frankie just riding off of her face. It's so cool. Like, I don't know what else to say.
Oh, I guess Brooke was actually the one who sliced through Zeus. I guess that's why he made that remark. I thought that like the blade at the rhino horn was what did the slicing, but of course, right, Brooke would have had to use his soul cutter thing. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Still, super awesome. God, there were a lot of good chapters of manga this week, Chris.
There were, but there can only be one best
chapter. Yes.
Which I'm going to give this week to... I'm going to give it to We Never Learn. I think this was a really fun, good chapter as like the start of everything, and it was a very sweet chapter between Asumi and Uega.
For shocking the hell out of me and making me actually have a physical, audible reaction when I read it, I have to give it to Chainsaw Man. There was no other series that did that. I think that there might have been a couple series that made me actually, laugh or chuckle or whatever, but they did not make Nicole, as I was reading it, go, is everything okay? So
yeah, I mean, when a series can get like that kind of authentic reaction out of you, where you audibly do something or have that moment, yeah.
MVP.
All right, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna split mine, but they're both from the same series. I want to give it to Sanji because Sanji looked so supremely cool, and I do enjoy it when Sanji shows up. So I want to give it to Sanji, but I also want to give it to Frankie because he did a wheelie off of Big Mom's face, and those are both equally cool ways to like reintroduce yourselves into the conflict. So I'm gonna give it to Frankie and Sanji from One Piece.
I'm just giving it to Frankie straight up.
Okay.
He's Frankie the Freedom Rider. So that's it. Yeah. Audience.
The audience has Mission Yozakura Family as their chapter of the week and Uega as their character of the week. Also, sorry, it's a tie actually between Mission Yozakura Family and Chainsaw Man.
Well, that lets you know just right there where we both just kind of went, it was a chapter.
Yeah.
One of the best chapters of the week, according to you.
As I said, it was clearly the biggest chapter of that series to date. So,
okay, well, that is going to do it for Weekly Manga Recap, everyone. We want to thank you all who joined us for the live recording, and to those of you who listened to the recording itself on all the places where you can find it, such as weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. And also, you can even watch the playback of the recording session on twitch.tv/RoloT.
You can find it on Spotify as well. In case I know people have been asking for it, so if you want to listen to Weekly Manga Recap, it should be appearing on Spotify as well.
Spotify. We do podcasts now.
Yep. We can.
Don't know how that took so long, but
don't know how it took us long. So, like us, or like most artists, we can also not get paid by Spotify.
Right. We've made it, Chris.
Until we like Taylor Swift, we're like, no, we're not gonna put our stuff on there, and then like a backdoor deal happens where it's like, all right, I'll put it on there again.
I guess it's there now. You can follow us on social media to find out exactly when the recording session is going to start. At Demember Podcast is the official podcast account. At RoloT and at Nick F. Time are your hosts. weeklymangarecap.podbean.com is where you can find the past episodes. You can also join our Discord server where you can use that to just send us general feedback, chat with other people in the Weekly Manga Recap. I don't know. I don't want to call it a universe because then we sound way too corporate. But
no, it's the Weekly Manga Recap universe, Nick. And next week we're going to do the Thunderdome. And I'm just going to buy a shit ton of tablets and place them up behind me. And people can call into it and be live audience. Unless they broadcast like beheadings and Nazi people. So don't do that. Pikachu is fine.
Pikachu is great.
Don't be an animal is kind of what I'm saying.
That was such amazing how within 2 days it was the best part of WWE and the worst part of WWE.
Oh yeah.
Immediately. Anywho, you can also use that to find the Google spreadsheet that Ninja X3i maintains where we keep track of all the statistics associated with the podcast, including recommendations. You can find out what has been recommended to us and add your voice to that. Also add your own recommendations and use that to decide, well, what is the audience chosen MVP and audience chosen series of the week and stuff like that. Special thanks go out to Steve Manor Takars, to Infamous Plant for making the framework for the visual stream of the show, and to Wednesday Dale Cheddar and Milo Jack Stillis for making the opening theme to Weekly Manga Recap. That's going to do it here on the show this week.
Yeah, we're going to catch you guys later. I don't have it in me for like a wacky send-off, so goodbye.
There you go. Bye, everyone.